We'd like to welcome. Oh, you're trying to get the stuff on Zoom? Okay. Okay. Just a second.
I did not include a thank you note for the youth council because I was guessing that you would be doing a.
Yeah, we need to do separate.
I think for them and just sending thank you for being here. Kind of a weird thank you to them.
I'll get with maybe Brittany and have her do something. Put together. You said she is on?
She's not here with us yet.
But the meeting has started.
Okay. We would like to welcome everyone out to the Highland City Council meeting on August 5th, 2025. We will begin with the invocation by Councilmember Scott Smith, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Ron Campbell.
Our kind Father in heaven, we're thankful this evening for the privilege and honor of meeting together as representatives of the City of Highland. We're very thankful for this opportunity to serve. We're thankful for all the work of our staff and members on the council for our recent fling event, and we're thankful for all the preparation they've done for this meeting. We ask you to bless us this day that we may have thy spirit, that we may have civil discourse and make good decisions to benefit the citizens of this great city. These things we say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We appreciate everyone being here. At this time, we have on our agenda a time that is called Unscheduled Public Appearances. We'd like to invite you to come up, if you'll keep your comments to 3 minutes. This is an opportunity for you to come up and share anything that you might have that you'd like to bring before the City Council. So if you could just please state your name clearly and keep your comments to 3 minutes. We'd like to invite, at this time, open it up for unscheduled public appearances. And we'd like to come up and address the council.
It's Liz Rice. I just wanted to tell you how great I thought the fling was, the parade. I just wanted to really compliment you of what was going on. It's not something I will soon forget. And I have appreciated you, Doug, very much in the process and support and kindness. And, win, lose, or draw, I'll still be here. Thanks.
And I'd just like to jump in for a moment and echo the comments about the fling. I thought the fling was just wonderful, and like to particularly thank Christina and all the volunteers who were involved with it. And certainly all of the staff was involved with, but particularly Christina kind of running point.
I think all of us were present. I was appreciative. I'm sorry we kind of dropped in. We are planning to kind of maybe have an opportunity at City Council to have Christina and those who help do our fling. We did have a really good, I think, successful fling. Appreciate it. There's a lot of work going up to it. There's a lot of work during it, and there's now some work being done after it. So, but we appreciate all the residents also showed support. We had, as Liz Rice mentioned, I had some comments about the parade, that they enjoyed seeing different groups that were there. We had a lot of good comments coming back from our residents. So thank you, Doug, for that, and Liz for sharing your comments. Is there others who'd like to come up and make some comments?
David Stevenson, and thank you for allowing the time for the public to address the City Council. About 22 years ago, my wife and I were standing on one of the last lots available in South Canterbury, and they were just starting Mitchell Hollow Park. And we had a house in North Canterbury that we were thinking about buying, but we just saw the park and the view and So we lived in a trailer house for 6 months while our house was built. And just wanted to come today, I guess 22 years later, and just express appreciation for the many wonderful things that we have here in Highland. You know, the trails are amazing. I was just talking to someone the other day about all of the parks, and I was just noticing today how green they are, even though we are in somewhat of a drought, and just wanted to express appreciation for the staff that takes care of the parks and the trails and so forth. I also wanted to just publicly express appreciation to Erin Wells. I've met with her, and she's been very helpful with some things I wanted to chat with her about, and just appreciate her kindness and professionalism as we discuss some items there. So thank you, Erin. And yes, the parade was wonderful. I was passing out crumble cookies, and it was very fun. So again, just thank you for what you're doing to make Highland the great place it is to live.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Douglas Carter Holladay, Holladay, and I've lived here in Highland now for 10 years. I live at the north end of the county, or the city, and that's up at Sky Estates, specifically Sterling Point. Mm-hmm. And my issue tonight is the traffic and the speeding that seems to occur up Highland Boulevard. And it seems to be on an increase, especially at certain times at night. I'm sure young people just love to start heading north up towards, I'm trying to think of the name, Suncrest. And as soon as they pass what they think is Highland, they just jump on the old accelerator and away they go. And I don't know if you have, I know there's been times, and I want to thank all of you for your public service. I know the police have been up there occasionally giving out citations, and I commend them for doing that. I think it's a little bit awkward because I live right on the border of Draper and Highland is second to none in terms of being such a great city. I just love living here. I've been in a number of cities, grew up in Holladay, Utah, and I just love being here in Highland. But I don't know if you have some suggestions or ideas. I've got one or two that I won't take your time tonight to share, but I think it's certainly an issue. And now you know that there's that new development going in I guess it's actually in Draper. No, I guess it's in Lehigh. It's a little tricky there where that all comes together. But we've got a lot of traffic now and big trucks going in and out, and there are times that the trucks forget to not use their motor brakes, whatever they're called. And we have to be somewhat forgiving, because we know that when we've got construction and issues like that, we can't expect to have complete silence. But I'm just more concerned about young people racing as they leave Highland going into Draper. And as they come down from Draper, I think they're traveling at 40 miles an hour, we wish, more like 50 or 60, but I think they then start to slow down, but they're still going pretty fast sometimes as they hit Highland. So that's my concern, and at another time I'd be happy to share some of my own suggestions about how we can deal with it. But thank you again for your public service, all of you. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. You know, Mr. Holladay, we appreciate you coming. Maybe to kind of give you some, you know, as a council, we are worried about some of the traffic mitigation going there. You're welcome to email us some of your suggestions. It's real simple, just to council@highlandut.gov. We'll reach everyone here.
I'll do it.
And so that will give suggestions. Maybe some things that we've put in place that will be coming forward, you'll be seeing. That the one that the road, what we call 111-800 North Ware Ridgeline Elementary, there will be a roundabout actually going in there from that development. We are also planning to put medians in the middle of that road all the way up to the Suncrest area to try to do some calming. At your specific area there, we have a future plan for another roundabout right there where it goes into Sterling Point and Sky Estates. We have a future plan for a roundabout.
Wonderful.
The council heard that Draper is not allowing any three-axis trailers or trucks to go down the Draper side. So I ran up to verify that, and that appears to be correct. They've now prohibited anything. They have to all come down the Highland side. So we are also concerned about that. So I appreciate you coming and addressing, but we want to hear your suggestions. I wanted to maybe share with you what we are aware. We're trying to put some things in place up there to try to calm that traffic. We are worried about the trucks coming off the mountain and having the brakes heat up. We've had 2 accidents in that area in the last year or 2 where they lost their brakes. So do we need to get a truck run off? I know that Ron's been talking. So we are aware of that area, but your suggestions would be welcome.
Thank you. I'll do that. Again, thanks to all of you. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else like to come up and address the city council? Okay, seeing none, we'll now close that time for the unscheduled public appearances. We do have a presentation tonight. That's going to be our item number 2A, which is the North Point Transfer Station presentation. And I believe Neil is here to kind of do that. And Scott, who's also here on our board, or on the city council, also is on that board. So he'll probably chime in to help fill in some things. So, Neil.
Well, thank you for having me. Public comments was way too easy, so now it's time to talk some trash, all right? Yeah. Scott knows I love to talk trash. Thank you for having me again. Just here to give an update on what's happening at the transfer station. Is this to move forward then? There we go, perfect. Oh. Yeah. Is that my first? No, that's way too far up. Okay. There we go. So just some history here. This is our total municipal solid waste at the transfer station. So we have different items, municipal solid waste, construction and demolition waste, green waste. We have clean concrete or clean fill that we kind of separate out. So this number here was our 2024 number, 169,499 tons of just municipal solid waste. So your typical household waste that's collected at the curb at restaurants, gas stations, and such. This is our C&D waste, continues to grow every year. Last year we collected 142,372 tons of construction and demolition waste for a total of 330,586 tons that we moved through the transfer station in 2024. So we move a little bit of trash. This is just a pie graph of the curbside tons, so any residential garbage cans that are put at the curb, divided out by city. So you can see there, Orem and Lehigh are the 2 biggest pieces of the pie. You can see over there, Highland at 8%, with a total of 9,059 tons from the curbside waste.
Can you go back to that? I'm kind of curious. Do you service all of Saratoga?
That one. So those numbers, that's just the Saratoga waste coming into the transfer station. Because of the proximity of Saratoga Springs to Bayview landfill, we've allowed some direct haul. So the trucks, Republic Services collects for Saratoga Springs, and they can directly haul right down to the landfill instead of having it come across Pioneer Crossing, dump it at the transfer station, and then having to send it back. So.
And I also noticed you don't have Alpine on here.
I don't. Alpine is not part of the district.
Neither is Eagle Mountain.
Hold it. Alpine, where do they take their garbage?
So Ace Disposal collects Alpine, and I
okay.
believe they take it down to the Pleasant Grove transfer station that's run by Ace.
But Pleasant Grove doesn't take it their own Pleasant Grove station?
No, they're part of the district, so they bring it to us, and we love that. We love all of our member cities.
Would you mind, where is your transfer station located at?
We are just in Linden by the, just right next to the Rocky Mountain Power Plant.
Okay.
Puts off all the steam, and the old landfill.
Yes.
Right there.
Okay, I just want to make sure I knew it.
Yeah, tucked behind it, which is nice with our old building. But we are working on some plans to upgrade or look at improvements and stuff, so.
Actually, big upgrade. Right?
Like a tax increase?
Yeah, we're taking our time. We want to get it right, so.
Okay.
And this is sensitive. All right, so this is just, I talked about the different types of material. So in 24, the clean fill, that's our now we're, instead of taking dirt as construction demolition waste and taking it to landfill, we're actually stockpiling the dirt, and we'll screen it and hopefully have some topsoil that we can sell. But the clean fill includes the dirt and clean concrete that doesn't have rebar in it, because we have a contractor comes in and makes two different products out of it, a road base and a drain rock. So we took in 6,111 tons of clean fill in '24. Our green waste, so of our grasses and limbs and branches that get ground up and taken off-site, composted, then we bring some of it back to sell. We took in 9,097 tons of that. Our minimum fee load, so if a resident comes to the transfer station, if it's a small load, we just charge them the minimum fee and not have to take the time to weigh them. We did 20,701 minimum fee tickets in 2024.
How much is a minimum fee?
$12.
And we're about 5,000 of those, my family.
Our commercial municipal solid waste, we did 59,359 tons. Our curbside from all of the homes, 110,140 tons. And our commercial construction and demolition waste, 142,189 tons. And then this is just a count by vehicle type. So our small loads that we actually weigh, we did 26,231 tickets in '24. Our small vehicles minimum fees, 41,000. I'll have to double check that because.
Can I just, when you say small vehicle, if I take down my truck and it's loaded full back, is it $12 or are you going to weigh me?
It depends on what you have in it. If you were loaded with a bunch of concrete, we'd probably weigh you. If you're driving in with your wheels off the ground, your front wheels, we'd probably weigh you. But most of the time, it's just the minimum fee.
Okay, I was just wondering what size.
So small vehicles, 41,102 tickets. Residential curbside, 12,720, obviously less because the trucks are bigger and hold a lot more. Roll-off, so the big 30, 40-yard dumpsters, 6,231 of those, and our front load, so the 2, 4, and 8 yards that dump at the front of the truck, 2,487. So out of our 2024 minimum fee loads, 9,679 was MSW, 7,327 C&D, 3,500 in green waste, and 175 in clean fill. And this is Highland City's curbside ton history since 2012. You can see in '24 it is, still the highest year. We had a big year in 2020 because of COVID. It kind of relaxed a little bit, but it's still increasing. So to see that continued growth, obviously if there's growth in the city, new homes, that number should continue to rise. And then just the last slide here, this is our curbside fee history. So this is what we charge Highland City per ton of the residential curbside waste. So back in 2010, it was $29. At one point in time, we went from 32 down to $30.50, and we've climbed a little bit over the years. Of course, the last several years have been quite an increase in costs of everything. And so just July of this year, we did bump it up at $1.50 a ton. We had our Bayview landfill increased us $1 per ton, but that rate had stayed at $10.50 a ton since we became part of Bayview landfill. So it was time for that increase.
So could I just interject? Because I think a lot of the council, having been on the board, I understand how it works, but the transfer station is basically, they kind of collect the trash, but then it's taken to Bayview, which is down on the southwest side of Utah Lake, just north of Goshen. And so it's transport costs a lot to get, that's some of the costs here, so.
Yeah, so our two biggest costs are the transportation and also then our disposal fees. So those are our two biggest costs. And
Shaka, why would we dump them there and then you guys truck them to another spot? Is it just sort or crush or?
So the landfill that we have there in Linden is a closed landfill. We no longer add any waste to that landfill. So originally, when that closed, North Point started transporting the waste by rail to East Carbon landfill in Carbon County. When the rail became inconsistent, they switched to trucks, and the waste was hauled all the way out to Wasatch Regional Landfill in Tooele County. And then in 2016, the district joined this group called New Era, the Northern Utah Environmental Resource Agency, which is currently made up of 4 waste districts. Sorry. South Utah Valley Solid Waste, which is in Spanish Fork, North Point, Transjordan Cities, which is the Transjordan Landfill in South Jordan, and then Wasatch Integrated, which is Davis and Morgan County. And currently, 3 of the 4 districts are hauling waste down to Bayview Landfill. So we all bought in. We're currently on probably about 60, 70 acres where the landfill is, but we have a total of 800 acres. So we've invested in a lot of property to be able to manage the waste for many, many years to come. And our goal is to keep our rates as low as possible. So I'm actually currently the chair of the Operations and Management Committee for New Era, and then each organization has 2 board members that sit on the full New Era board that we report to.
And this, is it up down by Camp Floyd out there by Cedar Fort?
So that is my construction and demolition landfill. So that's a North Point landfill, but if you go down Redwood Road, all the way, there's a big church farm down there just right next to that,
Masada.
next to
It's
Bateman
just
Dairy.
near Masada. It's not too far from the motion picture studios. They're farther south.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with 800 acres, and
Yep.
you're only using 60 of it.
Yep.
Do you think you can use all 800, or do you have to say, hey, we know we're going to have to keep a buffer? Or?
We have some big berms that we've built around between the landfill and the highway, just to block the view of our wonderful trash. But we will continue to build those berms, but that's really the only buffer. So we'll still have lots of acreage.
Can I inject something? And I think I talked about this, but I think this is really kind of a fun fact. So I went down and toured Bayview in May. And it's interesting because there's all these pipes throughout the landfill, and they collect the methane gas, which they then distribute and is processed, and it's shipped up to Salt Lake and refined or something. Isn't it?
So we have, when you install a gas collection system, you have to put in a flare station, which basically has these motors running, pulling a suction on the landfill, and it's taking all the landfill gas into that, and it'll send it up a flare, and it'll burn it off, and that burns about 1,200 degrees. Well, we've partnered with Pine Creek Ventures, who just outside of our gate has it's a CNG plant. So instead of us burning it, they pull it from us, they clean it all up, and they're actually injecting it into the Kearns River pipeline. They are now selling the gas, and we will also get royalties from that. So that should help us keep our rates low as
That's kind of
low as
cool.
well.
It is.
Yeah,
So-
environmental.
I've heard some of these cow farms are doing the same thing. They kind of collect that manure and get the gas.
Yeah.
Yeah, collect the gas.
Yeah, the Pine Creek Ventures actually has a site in Washington State at a potato processing plant that they're doing the same thing with it as well.
That's interesting.
It's a plant called Lamb Weston.
Scott, that is interesting. to
I,
hear.
I think that's fascinating.
It's
I
very
asked,
fascinating.
what is all this? And that was cool.
You know, the gas collection system, we have to tune the well, so there's wells that are drilled down in vertically. We also have some horizontal wells that we put in as we build. And every month we have to tune the well fill to make sure it's pulling the right amount. If the temperature starts to rise or too much oxygen is in those samples, we have to tune it back, because you can actually put too much suction on the landfill, inject air, and then you can create subsurface fires. And then we have to do a cap walk every month with a machine that's testing any emissions coming up out of the landfill. If there's a hit over 500 parts per million, we go cover it up, have to check it in 10 days. And then if it's still emitting, we have to, so there's lots and lots of regulations around trash. So we can talk trash all night, but I know you have other things to get to, but. So, any other
You're
questions?
trash talking with us, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the other interesting thing, and you kind of touched on this, but I think it's interesting with lithium batteries and different things. Don't sometimes they spontaneously ignite? Is that a problem?
Lithium batteries are a big problem. You've probably seen in the newspaper, especially like e-bikes, will just set someone's house on fire. So a lot of items have lithium-ion batteries that people don't think about, they just bring them in. We try to ask lots of questions. I think sometimes people think we're just trying to find ways to charge them more money, but we really want to know what's in the waste stream so we can manage it properly. Not June of 25, but June of 24, we had a big fire in the transfer station, and we had a lot of garbage in there. And it took a long time to put that out and did quite a bit of damage to a metal building. It melted all of our lights. Out of 240 fire suppression sprinklers, it set off 230 of them. It was 10 grand just to replace all those sprinklers. So it's important for residents to let us know what they're bringing in so we can manage it properly and help reduce the risk of fires and disposing of something improperly. So. But.
And am I remembering correctly that you accept batteries for recycling as a separate?
If they when they're notified, we'll pull them out. Car batteries, the lithium ion, from residents, we accept them. If it's a business, we expect the businesses to contact like a Veolia or a Clean Harbors and manage that waste properly. There is a thing called a conditionally exempt small quantity generator, which is less than 220 pounds per month, and then we can work with them, but they would still need to, it's not cheap to dispose of those things properly. But.
So if residents have batteries, the best answer is to bring them down, let you know that their battery isn't...
Even if it's like a full electric scooter and they can't get the battery out, just to say, hey, I got this scooter, it's got a lithium-ion battery in it, we'll take it, put it off to the side, and we'll manage it. So, yeah. Well, very good. Any other questions? All right. Again, thank you for your time.
I'd just like to make one more comment. Neil does a great job.
Good.
You've been manager 4 years now?
Almost 5. October,
Almost 5, yeah.
October will be 5 years. So, and Scott's been awesome. Aaron and Stephanie's been awesome to work with. So, thank you to the city. I was going to say, don't ever let Scott not be on the board, on the council. But
that will be up to the residents as they come up.
That's right. I ask a lot of questions.
Hey, I love that. Lots of questions are good. It helps me. So, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you, Neil, for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to our action items. We have 3 action items. We have our first one is item number 3A, which is, this will be an action item and a public hearing on our PO zone text amendment, and this will be Rob that will be walking us through it.
Thank you, Mayor. And
Just out of curiosity, is Kim online?
No.
We are missing Councilmember Kim Rodella. We do anticipate that she'll probably chime in at some time in the council meeting.
Do we not do the minutes?
There
Didn't have any on this.
There's no
Oh, no
item.
consent items. Okay, I just saw
I
the
know,
minutes
it's
there.
unusual. This is the
I
first
know.
time I think ever we haven't had
Yeah,
consent
I
items.
thought, I've got minutes here. Okay, fine. Okay.
We're going right to the fun stuff, which is zoning. So, as you all will recall, we've talked about the PO zone a lot over the last year or so. We rejected a previous proposal from a developer or owner of property in the PO zone, and staff was directed to update it ourselves, which we have tried to do. So the main goals of this is to decouple the original master plan, which included a site plan, landscaping plan, and very specific building design requirements, and kind of get rid of those, but update the code to ensure that the intent of that original plan is preserved in large part, while opening up a little more flexibility for some more modern designs, but not going too far. So, just so you all have your refresher, this is not the original, this is actually one of the amended site plans because it has more storage units. But this is the area we have been talking about. When the PO zone was adopted, it was really specific to this area, but it's later been expanded and we haven't really caught up in our zoning regulations to meet that. This will do that. So we presented these amendments first in June and then posted it online, sent out notices to all residents and property owners and affected entities, asking them to give us input on the proposed amendments. We did receive one comment and only a few at the Planning Commission hearing as well, which I take as this means they like what we proposed in large part with some tweaks. We did hold a public hearing with the Planning Commission. I'm giving you the Planning Commission action up front because I'm going to walk through a bunch of things. We had resident comments. There were concerns regarding the completion of the medians, which we all share. They are all going to be getting done soon. On the next item, we have the daycare, which will handle the lower median. Patterson can't get a certificate of occupancy for their building under construction until they finish the one in front of the flex office spaces, and we're talking with the church currently about the last one going up the hill. So we're getting all of them done. There was concerns about maintaining the residential and traditional designs and limiting or restricting flat roofs, particularly for the homes on the east side of Highland Boulevard. So we very specifically on the east side of Highland Boulevard said they have to do a traditional design. We offer kind of two approaches for a lot of designs in PO zone, except for those we say you have to be the traditional residential peak roof type design. And while we do allow some flat roofs in these amendments, we restrict how much of the site they can cover, how much of the building, to try to give variation in that. There were concerns with making sure that as we update landscaping requirements to include xeriscape, we don't have abrupt transitions from nice, turf landscaping to just rocks. So that's one that we agree with as well. Making sure that loading and unloading actually follows those time frames, which we agree with. And then whether we should have public oh, go ahead.
One quick point with regard to the landscaping that you were talking about. Just to be sure we're clear for everybody, that just plain rock doesn't meet any of our landscaping requirements,
it does not.
Correct? Okay.
Correct. Xeriscaping, under our definition, still requires vegetation and living material. There's a percentage involved in that.
So as you brought up about the medians. Those medians that just have a tree in them, they don't meet our landscaping requirements. They need to go put plants along that area too, right?
Right, there has to
I
be a
think that was
percentage even for those as well.
Okay.
And then there was a question about whether we should have public notice for development in the PO zone. At least what we've proposed is, like with all of our commercial zones, there's no radius notification for a site plan. Like we have the vet clinic coming up in 2 items. We didn't do a notice for that because they're proposing to develop under the existing code. But for the PO zone, every use is a conditional use, which does require a public notice. So effectively, every new development in the PO zone will require a public notice to go out to everyone. So I just want to give those heads up. The Planning Commission, after reviewing it, discussing with the residents, they voted unanimously to recommend adoption of the amendments, and they had 5 stipulations. How we're going to measure building height, they recommended top back of curb, limiting reflectivity of the exterior materials and colors to 70, restricting flat roofs to no more than 50% of the structure, buildings on the east side of Highland Boulevard using the traditional design, and removing certain parking requirements that we didn't really need. I'm going to walk through all of the amendments as well, and I just wanted to highlight this is what the Planning Commission recommended. You'll see in my presentation I've underlined certain things. Those are changes I've added from the Planning Commission. So we've incorporated all of their suggestions, but of course the council can make your own decision.
On the building height measured from the top back of the curb, which I like, but if there's a slope, there's no home anywhere that has a perfectly level curb. And they're all sloped. Is it the highest point? What is the midpoint? What?
Highest point, top back of curb along the road that has the highest frontage.
Okay.
So for most of these sites, it's along Highland Boulevard, wherever the curb is the highest, that's where we start measuring from.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me ask a question. So how do you determine the LRV? Is it just on like grayscales or, how do you determine that?
So all paints now actually come with an LRV as part of
Okay.
it, and materials have done a lot of studies. So when they come with a treated, trim, they will have an LRV associated with that trim, like the metallic coating or staining of the wood or whatever. So they'll be able to show that to us, and because we'll say, make sure all of your materials are 70% or under of your LRV, and they'll be able to show that in the material selections.
Okay.
Any other questions at this moment? Great. So, overview of what we've proposed here. We've removed all of those exhibits, those old plans, building designs, everything is gone. We have incorporated that 1-story building height limitation and the traditional design requirement. It's just straight in the code for buildings on the east side of Highland Boulevard. So those that back onto Bull River and Country French will maintain their 1-story limit plus a basement, and will have to be of the traditional residential design. And then we've also cleaned up all of the language that talked about, this is for a specific area in the city. I've added several new standards. I've clarified a lot of the site design and layout requirements. We still don't, I specifically put in, we don't have a minimum or maximum site size, which is fairly common for commercial sites. We don't say you must have a lot that's a 1/4 acre or 2 acres. We just say, here are your setbacks, here's your coverage limitation. You have to have 30% landscaping. Your building can only be 30% of your site. You figure out how that works for you, given your parking requirements and everything else. So we keep that clear. We have a little bit of flex, no we don't, not for that one. We also require subdivisions. Make it clear that if you're doing multiple sites, make sure the property boundaries align with your actual property development. Make sure that they will dedicate right-of-ways and water where they need to, and added a list of prohibited uses that weren't, it just said everything if it wasn't conditionally allowed, was prohibited. Now that we have this requirement to kind of evaluate new uses, I wanted to make sure it was really clear what we didn't want to have there.
So what does the acronym SOB stand for?
Sexually oriented businesses.
Okay, very good. I just was curious.
Sorry, that is a fairly standard term in the planning world. And
Okay.
also outside the planning world, but for a different meaning. Added new parking requirements. We actually didn't really have any in the code, so I followed our standard, which is 4 per 1,000 for professional office uses. Our highest is 5 per 1,000 for retail, but we don't allow retail here, so we just did 4. And based on our current, the storage unit site has about 3 parking spaces for that little storage unit office, so I just said, that's your parking requirement. Not that we're planning to ever expand it, but at least we have a requirement in there. I added in loading and parking standards, so if you're going to have a use that requires loading and unloading of larger vehicles, you have to provide a loading zone for it that's screened from view. I also added a allowance to allow each unit essentially to have 1 commercial vehicle parked in front of them, meaning a vehicle with advertisement. Our current zone regulation said they couldn't have any that was visible from the street. You'd have to have it parked behind. The problem is some of the developments only have parking along the side of the building, so there's no way for them to park a vehicle behind the building. So I thought, well, maybe we should allow them to have at least 1. All right. Oh, mouse. So those are all the new things. Everything else is things I've just changed from what was in there originally. Clarified landscaping requirements in parking lots, trying to make sure that parking lots are attractive and actually landscaped. You have to break it up, add planter islands. Did allow for a little bit of flexibility in the parking as long as they show that there's a traffic circulation plan that shows the best arrangement for the parking. Building heights, 35 feet is the current, measured from highest point, top back of curb. In all cases, you have to build at least 1 story above ground, which is, I put in 15 feet. Setbacks are mostly the same. Something I clarified was that residential, if your setbacks are near a residential zone, it's just 30 feet. And I also added an allowance for side setbacks to be reduced to 5 feet, side and rear, as long as you're not next to a residence. So if you have a bunch of offices near each other with property lines, you can go up to 5 feet. But if you're near a residence, you still have to maintain a broader setback.
Excuse me, going back to the building height, maximum 35 feet, does that apply to the single-story side?
Yes.
So
that is not changed from the current zone, which allows...
It's an interesting... I don't like to set a limit if we don't have to set a limit, but it seems we give a lot of latitude, because I don't know that anybody that says we want single story on that side would want a 35-foot high roof. And yet we're allowing it according to this. There's a conflict there built in.
It is currently allowed
and I don't know
in the
the
zone.
answer.
And so, I think it's more of a constraint on commercial building. Why would you want to build a 35-story building that has
With
a single
1 story.
floor?
Yes.
Maybe there is some use, I can't imagine, but these are professional offices. It seems like a lot of money to spend to build a tall building that doesn't do much.
Yeah, it seems a conflict, but I don't know how to solve it, so I'll shut up.
So,
No, it's a good
can I
question.
ask a question about the setbacks?
Sure.
So you're talking about reducing them in some instances to 5 feet. So if you had 2 commercial office buildings that meet criteria here, they'd be 10 feet apart. What do you put in that 10 feet? A pathway or something? I mean, because you can't landscape that.
Yes, we actually would require some kind of hardscaping or landscaping element to there. Likely wouldn't be landscape because you couldn't get sunlight there, but a nice attractive walkway with, you know, some rock through there to allow access around it. I remember I did this because with the flex office buildings, one of the big concerns was you have these big buildings that end up being too blocky, so they wanted to separate them and have a little walkway between them, and I don't think we achieved that as much as we wanted to. That was kind of my thought. You could do some kind of paseo or pedestrian access way through there.
No, I'm familiar with side setbacks, but this is unusual to have a rear setback of only 5 feet. Does that make sense? What's the thought on only having a 5-foot rear?
Mostly it was because we required pretty large setbacks from the right-of-way. So town center, for example, we actually have very, well, in most cases, small front setbacks because we wanted the buildings to be oriented to the street with parking behind. In the PO zone, we kind of took an opposite approach. We wanted parking in front of it or next to the building, which means the building has to be pushed further back. And so maybe that was to allow some flexibility in the design. I'm not, you know, this isn't something that's, I think, crucial. I just thought it might open up a little bit of flexibility for development as long as there's no impact to residences. We also do allow, currently in the zone, that second to last bullet point, that the side and rear setbacks for storage areas may be 5 feet near city boundaries. That's in the code currently. That's not a new thing. I've just expanded that to the non-storage unit portions of the PO zone. Any other questions on setbacks? Okay. Updated landscape requirements for xeriscape and with preference for xeriscape and natural open space. Updated fencing standards to align with our fence code, but generally discourage fencing. Discourage retaining walls and grading. We want this. The intent of the PO zone, as I was reading through it, was to kind of maintain a more rural, open feel. So I wanted to kind of reflect that as we updated our standards. That's what a lot of these are. And then I put a reference to our sign code, which just wasn't in there before. A lot of changes went into the building design standards, where we put in, as general, we have 2 approaches where we kind of outline. You can do a traditional approach, which is, in fact, I'll just move forward a little bit. So the traditional approach is the building on the bottom. You know, your traditional peaked roofs, gables, you know, residence-looking building. The more modern approach would be the one on the top, which is dentist office near Lone Peak, which is in the PO zone. And we're trying to essentially say, these are the range of things that we like for the PO zone.
Is that modern example there, is the top roof sloped enough to meet our current?
That top roof is sloped at a, it was half to 12. So it's considered a flat roof.
Okay, so although this is a modern look, it would not meet the roofing requirements that we're looking at in the amendments. Is that
Unless
correct?
you made it 65% when I calculated it. So 2 of the standards were on, that got updated is, we want buildings to have different massing, meaning when you look at it, it has steps in how it looks. So like the top building, you see there's a portion that's 2-story, but the rest of it's 1-story. And we've actually written that specifically in our code as you can have no more than 65% of your building be 2-story. The rest of it has to be a 1-story element, which can be a balcony, which can just be a, you know, an extension that's 1-story. So that top building is a good example of that. That actually is about 65%, 35%. 65% 2-story, 35% 1-story. But it is the flat roof is over the entirety of the 65% of the 2-story. So it wouldn't meet that roofing requirement.
Gotcha, okay.
So let me ask a question since you're talking about the 65%.
Yes.
I thought the planning commission leaned towards no more than 50%.
They did. No more than 50% for a flat roof. I suggested one option, we could make it 65% if you wanted to essentially allow what that top building did again. But right now it's written as the planning commission recommended, which is no more than 50%.
On the, and I hate to go back to this, but the more I think about it, the LRV being set at 70. When you look at LRVs, 0 to 40 is low, 40 to 60 is medium, 60 to 100 is high. 70 is in the high range. And I'm just wondering, why isn't it 60? I mean, it's arbitrary. I don't know, how did the 70 come up?
They picked a number.
They picked a number.
I think Jerry suggested it.
Yep.
It just seems if we put some method behind it, the method would be, let's stay in the medium range, and let's go to the high end of the medium range, which would be 60. It's just a thought.
When I looked at other cities, I didn't see a lot of cities regulating LRVs. The few that did, I saw 38 to 7%, but they were picking, saying, our red rocks near us have an LRV of 38%, and the darker areas of our ground, our natural landscape, are 7%. So stay within that range so you don't, overshadow our natural landscape, areas of southern Utah.
Yeah.
So we could do something like that. And we could go get a measurement of, what does it, our natural mountains, what is their LRV? I would assume it'd be a little bit higher. We have kind of a brighter
We do, yes.
mountains. So we'd probably be in the 60% range, but I'm not a color engineer.
Yeah, well, it's not critical. It's just something.
It's definitely something to look at. They just picked 70% as kind of an arbitrary number, but I did want to throw this up. So for those who may not be as familiar with LRV, which was myself, I knew about it generally, but not very specifically. This is kind of an example of those ranges there.
My wife's a designer. I know all about LRVs.
So actually with that, I don't believe on that top building, that white color would meet the LRV requirement. That seems
that's
too
what's
bright.
okay.
So we would require that now, if we were having the standards now, we would require that to be a darker shade, tone it down to a more off-white color. Speaking of, I've kind of mentioned these, the roof design, it doesn't require pitched roofs, but we do restrict the flat or low slope roofs to no more than 50% of the footprint. But that doesn't apply to walkable, habitable roofs. So back to this example, technically all of this is a flat roof. The single story has a flat roof and the second story has a flat roof. But it doesn't feel, I think, just looking at feel, because that's actually more of a balcony and terrace area. So it doesn't feel like a flat roof in like a modern sense. So when I incorporated the Planning Commission suggestion that no more than 50% be a flat roof, I excluded roofs on single story elements that you can walk on and actually use for the business. To try to encourage them to say, yeah, you can only do 65% of your building two-story, but you can make that other 35% a usable space for your tenants. The other way you can accomplish that 65-35, like on the bottom example, you notice it kind of steps in, and they have little dormers sticking out for that second story. Now the second story shouldn't be there, but it reduces it to look like kind of a single-story building with a tall roof. So I would think, I haven't done the measurements on that one. I couldn't find building plans, but something like that also could potentially meet the 65-35 limit. I think that is everything. Oh, I didn't finish my sentence there. The building massing, that 65-35, I did allow a little bit of flexibility. Basically, as long as they show that they've reduced the impact and that their design is better for residents and the city overall. Mostly I try to make it a high burden. We don't want people just coming and say, yeah, I've done it all two-story, but look how beautiful it is. It's more of no, you have to show why going this more two-story actually is better for the city and the residents and the adjacent office spaces. Any questions on the updated design standards?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. So let's go back to landscaping. I understand encouraging xeriscaping and kind of xeriscaping based on the standards of CUP where there's a fair amount of greenery, because we don't have to look like Las Vegas. I always get a little troubled when I hear natural landscaping, because in Highland, natural landscaping usually means weeds. And so why would we want that in our PO zone when they can do xeriscaping and you're going to have a lot of parking and different things? Why would you have a lot of natural landscaping?
It's a great question. So I initially wrote it that way because the original PO zone had a lot of language throughout that talked about we want to preserve the natural landscape or the natural feel of this area. I don't know that's how the direction you want to go, and I believe I would agree with you, council member, that xeriscape is more attractive than just a natural kind of
Right.
unimproved space.
Because the natural landscaping in the open space neighborhoods have been a source of contention because it doesn't look groomed and different things. I probably would eliminate that. I would have xeriscaping and regular, because a fair amount of these buildings will have parking and, it'll be asphalted and different things. I don't know why you would have, you can have a patch of weeds over here.
I totally agree, 1,000%.
On the second page, the top of the second page of the handout that I distributed to everybody, I agree too. That the text currently reads, natural landscaped areas and the preservation of natural open spaces encouraged. I'm rooting for changing that simply to the preservation of open spaces encouraged.
I'll agree to that.
And I'll say, we'll talk through Doug's proposed amendments. I've already reviewed them, and I fully support all of them. I just really didn't have time to incorporate them here.
I do have a question on one of them, though. Industrial businesses, excluding those. I'm thinking of going to the farmer's market, and this little kid had a 3D printer, and he was selling 3D printed toys that he created. Would that term, industrial businesses, would that eliminate a 3D printer? Because we're not making screws, with a lot of dust in the air. We're making 3D printers. Is that too much of a limitation? I'm not sure why industrial businesses, that term is in there.
Maybe I'll add a comment, and then no retail is permitted, and with it being offices as a thought.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Sorry, Doug, I didn't mean to.
Nope, that's perfect.
Yeah.
I'm just looking. That's a great thought. I'm just reviewing the code to see what clarification we should make there.
I know what they mean, but it's just, do we need to just clarify it?
This is just the Google AI summary, but it says that in a legal context, slaughtering generally refers to the killing of animals, primarily livestock, for the purpose of preparing their carcasses for human consumption.
I think that would be our definition.
I think it's a good thing to think through. If I was to get a request for say a veterinary clinic up in the PO zone, I think I would say that doesn't fall under slaughter. It's very incidental to the business, which is providing medical care, and part of the medical care is sometimes euthanizing animals.
Yes.
But it might.
It's medically assisted suicide, actually.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you bringing it. I have a question, so Robin. So
Yes.
you have industrial, we have light industrial. So, and I'm just familiar. So you have let's assume a charity moves in up there into these units, and they're assembling charitable kits. They're putting hygiene kits. Would that fall underneath an industrial use? Or is that something we need to wait to see if it comes in? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? They're not necessarily manufacturing the item, but they are assembling the items.
We do have the fallback. One, if we restrict it, we kind of set the baseline of we're not anticipating industrial use. If someone comes in and says, is this industrial or not? Part of the new state law that we passed a couple months ago was that uses that aren't specifically listed may be allowed if they align with existing uses. So they could come in and propose very specifically
Like a
what they
warehouse.
want, and then that could be reviewed either by me if I think it's close enough, or by Planning Commission and Council if I have a question about it. So you'd have the flexibility, a little bit of flexibility, but sometimes it's nicer to kind of put here's the restriction, and they're
Yes.
trying to say, we're not really that, and then they can come and justify why
But
they
hold
are.
on, my understanding was the new law is if you don't have it specified, it's granted.
No, the new law is anyone can ask to add uses as long as, and we have to have a list of when we can add them. And what we put in our code is, as long as it's not a prohibited use, we can consider adding it in as long as it meets the intent of the zone.
So in this case, in the instances that were brought up here, it would have to be ambiguous as to whether or not that counts as industrial. And in that case, it is not clearly prohibited, so we have the latitude. Is that?
I would agree, especially if they say, we want to run an office here, but part of our work will be doing these kits or something. It's like, okay, that's not, you're not just building a manufacturing, a CNC machine and producing materials. It's part of your business. Maybe that's not industrial, but we'd have to look at a specific use.
So then when we talk about retail sales, if a person's running an online business and they're using that as a warehouse where they don't have people step in to buy in their business, they can ship out of the area. I just want to make sure.
Yes, that would still be allowed. So what we're prohibiting is convenience stores, general retail. What you think of a retail is when you can walk in and say, here's your list of options, pick up something, go to the cash register. And
Well,
leave.
we had a jewelry store. I mean, our example is a jewelry store. That, my understanding, they can manufacture there. So how come that's not industrial if they're manufacturing rings?
They are putting together jewelry. I don't know if they're... Seems like fine jewelry crafting isn't really an industrial use in my mind.
Now we see the issue of the concerns.
Jewelry tends to be
I'll
more
also give the
artistic.
caveat, I still plan and will have in my drafts working on a large use table update that's going to consolidate all these things and give a lot more clarity to these things. So this is kind of a placeholder for the next 6 months or so until that process gets done.
Because I can see a lot of online businesses, such as supplying Amazon or an eBay business. You happen to
Yeah.
have this jewelry store. I'm not sure how are they selling?
They can do the
Appointments?
condition- They can do by appointment, so you can do consulting, and then you can go in and pick it up after they've made a custom piece of jewelry, and they can do online sales.
So how's that not retail?
That was what the commission allowed.
I understand. I remember it coming through that they could not have someone walk in and buy it that time, but you could go in and have it designed and then come back and pick it up. It was just, okay.
And we know that at one point they had like a little sign that said, walk in and buy stuff, and we had to say, you can't do that. And they took down the sign, and we monitor the business.
So we looked at Alpine Food Storage, you remember, that was one of the areas we were kind of maybe suggesting for them to move, but they couldn't because it was retail sales. What
Correct.
we're trying to do is not have a lot of heavy traffic in that area of a retail business. So, interesting. Okay.
And that's all I have to present. Doug also has a list of things as well, and maybe I'll just, as an introduction, there's no urgency in adopting this, and I know it was a very lengthy code amendment, so if you would like, to take a little more time to review this, plus any changes that you'd like to, direct me to add in, happy to do that, but if you're comfortable passing it tonight with any stipulations, happy to do that as well.
Doug, would you like to walk
Shall I
through
walk
this?
through? I've broken this into two different sections. One, the substantive amendments that I think we do need to talk about. The other is non-substantive amendments, the bottom of page 3 and continuing to page 4, that I don't believe we need to discuss unless somebody looks through it and objects to one of them. These are all things that, under the typical ordinance that we pass, that I don't remember offhandedly. If it is, I think it is Stephanie in consultation with Rob who can make non-substantive corrections. So the first item is just adding 3 entries to the list of prohibited uses. Industrial businesses, tattoo or body piercing shops, parlors or facilities, and thrift or pawn stores. Those last 2 are generally included in our existing commercial zones. The second change is about the reduction to 5 feet for side and rear setbacks. It currently reads near the city boundaries, and I would just like to change that to adjacent to a city boundary, just to eliminate some ambiguity there.
Just real quick, Doug, on tattoo, body piercing, parlors, facilities, thrift stores, and pawn stores, those are all retail. Aren't they covered in the fact we don't allow retail?
The reason that I thought about putting those in is that if you look at the rest of the prohibited uses, general retail, for example, is prohibited. Convenience stores, gas stations, even though we broadly prohibit retail in the zone, I don't have any objection to leaving them out. But it seemed like since we explicitly prohibit those in our commercial zones, that it'd be good to add it onto the
I mean,
list.
I think a thrift and pawn shop is retail. I can see
Yes.
where someone would argue that tattoo or body piercing.
May not be, and I can, that one I can see. It's
So what you're
just,
saying is
I
being
always
smart.
have heartache when you start listing all the can'ts, because you can't get them all.
Right.
And you start listing them, it's like, well, X isn't on there, so I'm gonna put X out there. Where if we have general terminology, in retail would cover it, I think, for the thrift stores and pawn stores. The tattoo and body piercing, that one I can see, doesn't really fall under that definition, but I don't know a thrift store or a pawn store that's not a retail operation.
Anyone, are we generally okay with industrial businesses and tattoo or body piercing shops, parlors, and facilities?
Yeah.
This is a side note. I was up in Gillette, Wyoming, and I saw a tattoo shop that said Painful Tattoos was the name of the tattoo shop. And I thought, okay.
Something to be said for truth in advertising, huh?
Me and my wife just laughed. We actually took pictures. Okay.
They don't have to sign any disclaimer.
anyway, I would agree but I do agree with Ron. I think on thrift and pawn shops, I think they would be at general retail.
The third one down, the current text says that the grading of berms is further detailed in section 3-4318 of this code, and that's pointing out to the C1 zone where we have an analogous thing in the PO zone that's proposed. So I just prefer to point to the current zone.
Can you tell us what analogous code is?
What's that?
What is this word, analogous? What does that mean?
Oh, roughly the same. Like when you form an analogy. The first one on the second page we've already talked about, but it's changing natural landscaped areas and the preservation of natural open spaces encouraged to the preservation of open spaces encouraged.
Right.
The next one, there are actually three like this that Rob generally removed introductory text that just basically said, these are the rules that you have to follow. But there were three sections where it got left in, so just you're proposing to remove that. The next one down, 3-4916. There is a list of the only projections that shall be permitted within the required setback areas is listed as roof overhangs. Yet that's more restrictive than somewhere else in the proposed code, which also allows canopies and similar coverings. So just want to add that in. Keep it consistent. The next one down is simply another removal of introductory text in 3-4917.
Back to 4916, you're saying that the highlighted areas there that you highlighted in yellow, those are the texts that need to be added in to be consistent?
Yeah, that is the text that exists in the other case.
Very good.
Yep.
Good.
On the top of page 3 is the third and last introductory text to strike. The next one down defines the modern approach as flat or gently sloping roofs with wide overhangs, etc. However, later on we limit the flat or gently sloping roofs to 50% of the building footprint. So I would just like to change that to instead of flat or gently sloping roofs, some flat or gently sloping roofs in the definition of modern approach, again, just for consistency between the and the last one when we talk about roofing, I'm concerned that walkable/habitable roof isn't defined anyplace, and so is open to exploitation, and would like to update that text as Rob actually came up with this piece, which is better than any clarification I would have come up with, to be walkable/habitable roofs used as balconies, terraces, or walking congregation or recreational areas. We can go through the non-substantive changes if anyone would like, but I don't think there's any need to do so.
While we're talking about roofs, I was really kind of shocked when I went down to Foxwood Estates, and there's near what we would consider a urban fire area right there. Somebody's putting a cedar roof up, cedar. A lot of cities have banned cedar roofs. We haven't. But the state apparently says we can't. We have state laws in Utah that would prohibit us from doing that. But I was just really shocked in today's world that we have people still putting up wood shingles in an area that's right next to an urban fire zone that I would consider dangerous.
So, Ron, are you sure that they were wood?
Yes, I'm positive.
Because when I reshingled my grandparents' home, the shingles look like wood, but they're Trex. Cedar is what they're called.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting thing, and so
I
they
walked
won't
over to
catch
the
on
site
fire,
and
they
picked up
melt.
a piece of cedar.
Yeah.
It was on the ground.
So actually it was true cedar.
Yeah, it was true cedar.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I was really shocked.
Well, and
to be
I
honest.
think we have to be careful. I think Bull River actually has certain standards in their area
That
that
require.
their house has to be more of a wood-like, and I'm not even sure the roofing. That's what I'm saying. And that they're
Yeah.
an interface that would be a concern on fire.
Yeah, it's the fire hazard of those. I mean, I had one, and I love them. But I had the 50 year. This, by the way, is the 20 to 30 year. It's the thinner one. It's not the real thick one. But every fireworks that our neighbors did, I was awake, scared. And it's now been replaced. Non-flammable material. I feel very good about our new roof. Thanks to the insurance company, by the way, that took care of that. But wood shingles do concern me. But we do have a state where we're not allowed to control those.
So let me ask you, that's not part of anything in this
No,
code, is
it's
it?
not. We talked about roofs here, and it reminded me of that, and I'm going, we probably need to be aware of the fact that we do have people putting cedar shakes in, but we can't really control that.
Yeah.
That would be their risk.
Can I ask one question? I agree with these adjustments and clarifications that Doug made. All through our code and different things, I just want to clarify this. I mean, this is a conditional use process, correct? And so is the ultimate land use authority the council?
For conditional uses, yes.
Okay.
And for site plans and for architecture review, the council is the final body. on
Okay,
that.
so we still have not legislative, but conditional use control over all of this. I just wanted to clarify that because with all the state changes and different things, I think as a council, sometimes we're kind of ceding a lot of our elected official authority, and I just think we have to be careful with that. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, you've
Council
lost
did-
it for a lot of residential subdivisions, but commercial site plans and
We
similar
have-
things, you still have that authority.
Okay.
So it's all approved. If there's no other questions, we do have a public hearing for this. So with that, I think you've had some good discussion here at the council to understand what they're kind of maybe thinking. I'd like to open this up for public hearing. So at this time, the public hearing will now be open. Please, anyone like to come up and address this?
Appreciate it.
It's Liz Rice. So I'm confused. If you could put that picture back up, please, of the two, I mean, when you say, are you going with 50% flat roofs or are you going with 75? I mean,
65.
I'm confused.
It's 50 pros unless the council wants to go.
It can be up to 50%.
The planning commission proposed 50.
Okay, right. I was there. But I still think flat roofs are really ugly. It's just a comment. And just a couple of comments. After spending some time today with lots of people in open space, that natural landscape, I agree with, I think it was Scott that said it, equals no landscaping, so you need to definitely change that, please. And this is just I'm grateful for the tattoo or body piercing shops, no parlors, or facilities. So just so you're aware, and I don't know if we have any plastic surgeons in Highland, but plastic surgeons sometimes deal with eyebrow tattooing or lip tattooing because patients have alopecia. So I think you need to be a little bit careful with that comment there. That was all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to come up and address the council? Seeing none, we close the public hearing, bring it back to council if there's further discussion or a motion.
Rob, a question about the last point with regard to therapeutic tattooing, essentially. It seems like that is something that would generally be allowed in the zone. Two, the tattoo or body piercing shops, parlors, or facilities, is that broad enough that that would preclude such a thing? I just pulled that text from, I don't remember if it was the C1 or the CR zone, but.
It's one of those things that tattoos have evolved, and so permanent makeup is a tattoo, but it's of a different nature than many people think of it as tattoos. I actually would be a little bit worried about if that's going to be allowed. Like, even for a piercing shop, they have to be licensed, and there's a certain level of esthetician licensing that you have to do in order to run a piercing shop, which arguably is a medical field. So it would normally be, I think, allowed unless you put this restriction in there. Restricting tattoos facilities could arguably include a portion of an office used for, permanent makeup or similar services. So we might need to clarify that more.
They could come and advocate to the council for a
They can always come back and ask, we want to do this, will you allow us?
Right. If we were to change that to shops or parlors and eliminate the facilities, does that seem like it?
I think that would change it, because then the primary shop is just for tattoos or piercings.
It's dedicated to that purpose, and that's what
Rather
we're
than
trying to
just a
avoid.
facility that
happens to
do that.
So if we had a beauty parlor that had one tattoo artist that came in on Thursday nights from 6 to 7, not their main business, is that not classified a tattoo? You know what I'm saying? Is someone going to be able to get around it saying, well, I'm really a beautician. I have a person that comes in and does tattoos, but that's not the primary business of what we're doing. You understand what I'm saying? Can someone wiggle the way through?
Potentially.
How do we close that potentially?
I'm looking over the currently permitted uses.
I mean, because to me, that would be how someone would get around it. I am bringing in a person that might do something for eyebrows, but they're also going to add a tattoo. I mean, if that's what we're worried about, it's not having a tattoo parlor, then.
My understanding of the reason that is prohibited in other zones is specifically that we're concerned about the impact of having piercing or tattoo parlors. And to me, that sort of almost incidental use doesn't have that same sort of impact. I mean, I wasn't thinking through that when I pulled this from the other code, but that's kind of my initial thought about that.
Oh, you say if their main business is this, that's what you're concerned about, then if it's a site accessory business.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the intent behind why we.
Is that your thought too, council?
I'll agree.
Agree with what?
Well, I think it's okay if it's an accessory part of their business, but not the
Their
main
main business.
business. Yeah.
I think there's always a way that if somebody really wants to get around something, they'll try to get around it. And I don't know that we need to address it so completely that we have absolutely eliminate all options. But it's something that if it ever did come up, we could deal with it if it does. Okay. It's not likely to, but if it does, but I agree that it's more incidental. But if somebody is actually a tattoo artist and they say, I'm going to bring in a beautician that comes in 2 hours a week and say, this is a beauty shop, and come in and get your tattoos 40 hours a week, but you can get your hair done 2 hours a week, that could be a problem. But I don't know that realistically that's going to happen. And if
But
it
you're
does,
okay if
we'd
it's,
have to approach
but
it.
you're okay if it's the opposite, beauty shop 40 hours
Yeah.
and tattoo 2 hours?
Sure. It's incidental. That's the key to this, I think.
Okay.
So.
So, okay. Council, do we have a motion or anything else we need to do?
I guess the big question for me is there were a fair number of changes to what came out in the packet. Is that something that folks are comfortable voting on and approving, or do we need to
I think there's
continue?
enough that we've discussed that I'm not clear what I'm approving tonight.
So what you'd like to do is maybe continue this item and instruct staff
Yes.
to implement this.
Incorporate
into-
these into the final document so you can see it as it will be adopted.
Yep.
Oh,
I move that the city council continue the ordinance amending the professional office zone district regulations and standards.
So, can I just say, I think we
Second.
need to clarify the 50 and the 65 foot. And,
The one is first, the 65 feet, second story, first,
Right.
and 35 on the first, and the other is the flat roof only. It just relates to the flat roof.
but there
Of all
seemed
the
to be a
roofs,
discrepancy
only
between
50%
the
can be
planning
flat.
commission and what,
So what I proposed is a 50% limit on the flat roof, which is what the planning commission recommended.
Right.
I threw out as something to consider, they just kind of picked 50% when they made the motion. They didn't kind of discuss what the percentage should be. I just threw out as a consideration, you could increase that to 65% so it aligns with that two-story restriction as well, so that basically the two-story portion could be a flat roof, but you don't have to. I just wanted to throw it as like, that's something you could think about, but I'm also totally fine with saying you're limited 50% flat roof and no more, as the planning commission recommended.
what we're basically continuing this to direct the staff to make some corrections. So I guess maybe we need to kind of come to a decision
Now,
on that.
what
Yeah.
direction you want to give? Do you want 50 or 65%?
I like the less, the 50, no more than 50. If I could say 0, I would say 0, to be honest with you. But I'm not. in
You
good
can.
conscience want to regulate to that level.
What's the rest of the council feel on that, the 50%?
I lean towards the 50%. I know in architecture now there's a lot of flat roofs. Flat roofs long-term are a problem. I grew up in a business that had a flat roof, and it was a constant problem to try to maintain it. So I'm a little bit biased against flat roofs. So I'd say 50%.
So is anyone else have a real concern on that?
I'm good with 50%.
So we
Great.
would rather, okay, so I have Ron's made a motion right now for continuance. Is there a second on that?
Yeah, second.
Okay, and Doug's second. Any other, if there's not, we'll go ahead and we'll vote on that. Is it continuing? And Rob, do you feel like you have good direction on what needs to be done?
And no natural landscaping?
And that, Kim, you're in?
She is here.
Okay, and that continuance is 5-0. I just heard her. Okay, we're now on to item number 3B, which is also an action public hearing on the PO Zone Daycare Agreement. And then, Rob, that's you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Of this one, we also have an applicant here. There's Logan there. You've seen this a couple months ago. It's now made its way through Planning Commission and onto you for final approval. Also, apropos, given our amendments to the PO zone are not quite finalized, essentially, this is a proposal for a daycare that doesn't meet the original design for the PO zone, more or less meets the new amendment, but those haven't been adopted yet, so they're kind of they want to get their entitlement and start building, so they're asking for a development agreement to allow them to do that. This is a legislative development agreement, which means we pass it the same way we do as a zoning ordinance. It goes through public hearings, planning commission, and council.
You say it's legislative.
This is legislative
Right.
whether to do this or not. The major changes is the site plan, building design doesn't meet the current PO zone, and they're asking for their daycare to be a permitted use rather than a conditional use, so they don't have to come back through again. And I'll get to why I think that's fine in a second here. So this is the property there. It's south of the storage units, across from the flex office space. I've already done that. It overrides the PO zone only for those items in the development agreement that specifically address it. Everything else is still covered by our general zoning regulations. So the current master plan for the PO zone has 2 buildings within this site, each of which has about a 9,400 square foot massing between 3 stories. This is a smaller design in a sense. It's 10,000 square feet, so about the same massing as one of those buildings, but it's 1 story only. There's concept elevations, which we'll get to in a second. There's site and landscaping will conform to those concept plans. They're providing 40 parking spaces, which is the 4 per 1,000 standard. Access has been pushed back away from Highland Boulevard to allow for a little more vehicle queuing. They'll landscape that southern median. They'll provide sidewalks. They're asking for the daycare to be a permitted use. This is something, well, I'll get to that in a second. I'll touch on that later. So there's the original master plan, and here's their proposed master plan. You'll see the access is up here. The buildings moved from having one here and kind of one here to where it's currently aligned. There's their circulation plan. That was a requirement that the Planning Commission put on, so you can see how they're proposing to circulate cars through for loading and unloading. They have room for about 24 cars, including on Sunset Drive, to stack through. A little bit more if you count, if they double up turning left and right. So their plan is this will be primarily a drop-off situation. Apparently their tenant is very experienced with that. I can let them speak to that a little bit more. They know that in more detail than I do. There's their landscape plan. So here's the current PO zone design for those buildings. These are actually allowed to be 2 stories with a basement. You can kind of see it in there. This is what they have proposed in here. And I'll highlight one of the conditions from the Planning Commission was that they add shake shingles to under the eaves to kind of line up with what the building on the other side is. And they've already incorporated that. You can see it on all of the eaves there, all around the building. So they've already shown that in their plans. There's the sides. The Planning Commission held a public...
Rob, just
go ahead.
Make sure I'm correctly understanding this. The elevations that we just saw there, the Planning Commission looked at those and was okay with that as part of it. That's not something that's new.
No, they saw this. The only change are those the shapes.
That's right, because they talked about the, yep.
Right. They asked those to be added, and they've added them to their plans. Planning Commission held a public hearing July 22nd. We only had one comment from a resident who said they thought it was a win for residents along there, so they were in support of it. Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend approval with 3 stipulations: that vinyl fencing that's around the sides. Actually, they've also updated that in their plan here. That fencing over here be a non-white color, a neutral color to kind of blend in more, which they've agreed to. Shake shingles be incorporated, and you present a traffic circulation plan, which I showed you earlier.
The way we've worded the LRV language and the construction, would that apply to the fences?
No, that only applies to building materials.
Okay.
This one would apply to them. They have a non-white requirement written into the development agreement. Our review, in preparing this, we thought this was a good match for the PO zone. It solves a lot of concerns with that site and maintains that residential architecture going up there. I think it'll be a very nice looking building as you go up Highland Boulevard. Daycares are already allowed in this area. It's just making it so they don't have to come back for a conditional use process. The reason for that is if you want to put conditions on this use after looking at this, let's just put them on there now and make them comply with it going forward. Kind of in a similar vein as that, this is not something I presented to Planning Commission because I just didn't think about it at the time. But the council could, if you wanted, allow staff to be the land use authority for the site plan and building architecture, as long as it matches what they've just shown you. We did this with Highland Mains when they came in and presented their plans and they showed their buildings. The council approved that in a development agreement and then said the finer details of the site plan, you know, the utilities and how that all works out, staff can approve as long as it still matches what the council saw and approved. You don't have to do that. We can still have them come back through site plan and architectural approval. It just seemed like if you've already approved this and you like the building, maybe we save a little bit of time for them.
On the parking, is the current parking arrangement, it's got 7 in the center there. Is that the minimum number they have to have? So they couldn't have 7 less?
They could not have 7 less.
Okay,
They
because
need to have 40.
what I'm thinking is the queuing concerns me a little bit because it's so close to Highland Boulevard. And you could queue that back into Highland Boulevard to the point where you've got backup on Highland Boulevard. It's not as bad as if it was on Highland Boulevard, then it would be extremely troubling. But we do have some space there and we can queue 7 or 8 cars, whatever it is. But if we had a double lane eliminating that 7 parking and you allow double like Quick Quack Car Wash does, 2 cars coming in, but then you have kids walking in front of other cars, probably a bad idea. So anyway, it was just a thought. I am a little troubled about the queuing, but I have to say probably not enough to make a big deal about it.
My only concern about queuing is actually left turns off of Highland Boulevard, that if there is enough southbound traffic that slows the left turns, we've only got room for maybe 5 cars to stack on Highland Boulevard before we block the street. My guess is that isn't going to end up being a problem, given that you'll be a little bit off of commute times, probably when people are picking up or dropping off kids. Yeah, and that if we need to, we may be able to extend that left turn lane a little bit. But that'd be my only concern about queuing, I think.
Okay, council, this is going to be a public hearing, but would you want to hear from the applicant first before we go to public hearing?
I would.
I'd prefer, yeah.
Let's go ahead and have the applicant come up, and if there's some questions or things you'd like to address.
Thank you. Logan Johnson with Wright Development, 1178 West Legacy Crossing in Centerville, Utah. First, our intent on this exhibit you're seeing right here was not to show that this is how we expect it to function. The Planning Commission had a specific request that said, what if you had to spill out onto the street? How's that going to look? We anticipate that the 13 stalls shown in blue will meet our demands, and that will be the stacking. And we simply showed this large amount of cars at the specific request of the Planning Commission. So just want to make sure that's clear. We don't anticipate the site to ever look like that, but just wanted to show the Planning Commission how those cars would line up.
But I want to be clear that it's standard that they would not go in, they wouldn't park and take their child in.
That's absolutely
correct. They're just
correct.
dropping him off in the front.
That's absolutely correct. And if they did...
Not in my world, it wouldn't be, but...
Oh, right. Yeah.
I'm trying to understand that because I guess I'm just not familiar with it because it shows them stopping right there, apparently. The kid gets out and walks in themselves. Is that right?
You have, if I remember correctly, you have staff outside for...
That's correct. There's staff that as a car pulls up, they come and welcome the kids in, and they... In our discussions with them on other sites, we did this analysis, usually it's just 1 to 2 cars at a time, and they line them up at the handicap stalls, which are very frequently not used, and have the stripe spot coming in. And usually it's just 2 to 3 cars, and then the kids jump out and they're off. Parents often are in a hurry. If there is a need for, if they do have stack up, they find that parents will park and then walk their kid in, which in effect adds to more stacking because those cars could be parked if there is a large unusual influx. But
do you have, because personally the handicap parking is important.
And it must
And
be
if
the
you're
closest
using
stalls
it
to the door.
to queue people to come in, your staff are there. If somebody comes in with a child in a wheelchair and they need to park there and they need to get the child in a wheelchair, do you have an alternative plan of what the access is? Because the access right now looks like it's coming right through where that wheelchair needs to have a ramp coming down from a van for that wheelchair to get off of the van.
The ramp, fortunately, would open up typically to the stall next to it. So the ramp could function in terms of how does a car get in and park if there's a queue.
Yes.
It would perform just like any other parking lot. You know, if you go to Walmart or whatever and there's a car, you wait a sec, they clear, then you pull in. So again, this picture sort of represents a static thing that will never happen. And we're just showing the queuing, but my anticipation is if there was someone that needed those handicap stalls, they would come in, wait behind 2 or 3 cars. Once they clear, they pull in and start unloading. And other cars, once they park, could come behind them and continue the unloading.
So my question is, if this is how your customers are coming in every day and how they're picking up, why are you having parking along the front and not actually having the pickup move up and working that parking? I mean, because right now, if you have cars parked along there, you've got blind spots that the kids are walking in between or coming in. To me, that seems like a safety issue. You know what I mean? I'm going, why is there not a flow where the kids are not having to walk out and come between cars? I'm just going,
Like a canopy that comes out.
Yeah,
So
well,
one of
why-
our offices has a canopy that comes out from the building, goes out the parking lot. So you come right from the parking lot into that. I mean, you don't park in front of
correct.
the door.
So why
Yeah.
is there? I mean, and I understand, but if this is the way your kids, we're talking younger kids, are going to be running out, why are we putting them running in between cars in this situation versus having a pull up in front of the learning center here and they can go out without any conflict? I'm just kind of curious why this is the design.
Number one, because it works and has worked on hundreds of sites. And I think that's a good point, that there might be scenarios where kids walk in between cars as they go to the sidewalk versus building a separate platform or something, or a curb that they would pull up to. And I think it's just a function of the site size and the parking stalls requirements. Regardless of the city's requirement, we would want to be at 38, 39 plus stalls. And so, Mayor, in response to your question, I would just say that's a valid point. But fortunately, the system that they've established, it works effectively, and the tenant that's coming in has not expressed any concerns about that particular mechanism. Did I answer your question, Ron, before we moved on?
You did. I'm not 100%
Sold.
liking the
Yeah,
answer.
yeah.
But it's probably adequate. It's just to the point, I don't know at this point that we want to try to make any changes. I do want to ask, if all these parking spots, is there room to have one less? Or is every single one of them required?
If you go by the 4 per thousand requirement, every one of these is required. Now,
Because the
this
other
is a
thought is to
legislative
use
development
one of them
agreement.
as an
You
access
could,
point.
you could approve something less, though I think you just heard Logan say that their tenant wants at least 38, 39. There's not much
Yeah.
room to reduce it.
And we usually
Yeah, and that's my
always need more
concern is
than less.
when I look at the other options of what you could do without using that handicap accessible area as your entrance, it's probably not doable. But it's unfortunate because I'd like to see that left open. I mean, that's just my bias. I'd like to see it left open and available, not being used so that when somebody comes in, they have to disrupt what's ever normally going on. So you can bring your van in, pull down a ramp that has to go down to that striped area and have the wheelchair go inside the building.
Clarify, I don't think you were saying, Logan, that you'll have the people actually park in those stalls, just that they'll be in the drive aisle, dropping people off and going through there.
That's typically the faster way to move.
And it's more a function of the ADA ramp has to be as close to the entrance of the building as possible.
That's right. It has to be the closest to the door.
So, can I ask a question here? I don't understand exactly how the daycare functions. I mean, I understand the purpose and things, but are we making the assumption that everybody's going to bring their kids at the same time?
No.
No, because it's going to be staggered. It's a window, right?
2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening.
Yeah, 2 hours in the evening. So I'm not sure that the queuing issue here that was brought up is a real concern, is it? I mean, if you got it staggered, are you really going to have 30 cars there at the same time? I'm just kind of wondering how it works.
I think it's fine. I think they've done this hundreds of times, and I've done lots of school drop-offs and lots of school parking lots, and this is very similar to what they have. And my guess is if you need that handicap space, you're going to time your drop-off, so that you have access to it. And I like those spots in the middle because then people can just pull through if they need to stop and get out. And I bet the other spots are mostly taken up by staff or volunteers who aren't going to be coming at the same hours as the drop-off kids. So I think it's great.
So help us out here, Brittany, here are those. So let me ask you, not having a dedicated drop-off area, because really it's just being dropped off anywhere in the front, having any safety area, like we're saying, hey, there's one parking area that this is where you do drop off at, and there's not cars parked there. I mean, to me, I just help me understand. And my kids, when they went to the daycare, it was a person's house. They pulled up in front of the house, and there wasn't a car there. They jumped up and ran up into the house. But this is a functioning company daycare. How many kids would normally be inside this daycare?
I believe it's about 92, or I can't remember the number exactly, but I think it's around 92.
So we're going to have 184 trips. Does that make sense? You're going to have 92 in the morning, 92 at night, dropping in and off. I'm just trying to...
And they have a 2-hour window on both sides.
A ceiling of 92.
Yeah, but
reasonably likely that it will be lower than that.
They're all running in and out of a car. I'm just trying
But my guess is what's going to happen is you're going to have your staff out there who's helping them get to and from. They're all going to be exiting the car on that right side, and I don't think you're going to have people.
So you're going to have a staff member out there for 2 hours.
Yep.
Welcoming, and then 2 hours.
So 92 over 2 hours, and obviously it's not like this. That's about one drop-off per minute, or a little less than that.
And
And
so
so
typically
typically
stagger.
Staff will, exactly if they stagger. And I'm sure there'll be a time where there was 2 or 3 or 4 that come at the same time. And so typically what happens is the staff member can see the door and the drop-off, and as they see people come, they go out to welcome them in. So no, I don't believe that someone's standing out there for full 2 hours. There could be maybe a 30-minute window that they just keep someone out. And really it just depends. Some locations have a little bit more peak phenomenon, and others are a little bit more spread out.
Here's why I like it, because if you had like a drop-off zone that's any wider than that, then you're going to have parents making me crazy and trying to go around, and that's where it really gets dangerous. I think if they're all getting out in this single file line, I think it's probably fine.
And not to belabor the point, but there is a large window of drop-off times, and we do not expect ever that what is shown on the screen is what would be seen. But happy to consider if the council would give us flexibility and say, hey, we'd be fine with 39 stalls or 40. I'd love to take that to my tenant and said, hey, they had this great idea. You just build a concrete pathway out the width of a stall right where you expect the drop-offs to happen. I would love to have that option, and I'd be happy to take that. Would love an approval tonight, obviously, but I'd love if there was an option for that, to take that to the tenant and say, can you guys live with one less stall? The council here in Highland really is worried about the safety of the kids, and I'd love to take that to them and try to sell it to them.
I personally would like to see that. Just because it's always worked doesn't mean it's the best way. There may be a better way.
Absolutely.
And it is the handicap accessibility that is being used, and it's probably fine, and it has been. But is it better if we were to dedicate one of these stalls? That's my personal view. I'd like to at least give the tenant and the designers here, the architects, the option to look at that and come back with a recommendation to the council. Not that we demand it or we ask it, but look at it, see what you think. Does it make sense? And if you think it makes sense, bring it back to us.
Ron, if I be so bold, I would love to request from the council that you simply commit that to the development agreement. That in the development agreement we have the option to build this out or not at the tenant's discretion, and just with my commitment that I will go and explain to them the desires
I would
of
be
the
okay
council.
with that.
So let me ask you, so right now they need to have 40 stalls, and that's what they're showing in their plan, correct?
Correct.
And I mean, if you're really going to do a drop-off area, you also want to put bollards so the cars can't veer in. You want bollards out there so it really does protect where they walk. Does that make sense? You have bollards out there and you have bollards back in. So we
just giving up one space to do that.
Do schools require that? I'm just asking.
No, I don't think so. But schools have usually kind of a pull around. Right now, if you look at Mountain Ridge or you look at some of the elementaries like Highland, they have a pull around where the buses are at. And sometimes the parents will come pull around, and that's where they drop off. And so there's not really the conflict with the cars with that.
I was just thinking about two of our offices that I'm most familiar with, and we have a canopy that goes out and people can just drop them and then walk in, and then they park their car later. I mean, you just don't drop people off and have them walk through vehicles.
And if you put a canopy over it, if it's raining, it certainly would help the staff as they're bringing the kids in.
Yeah, I just think having a protected access is good. I agree with Brittany. I mean, this is a workable plan, but I'm just, if I just go back and look at it.
The question is, are you amenable, council, that they'd have less parking? So let's assume they had only 38 parking on this versus 40. Are we setting anything there in?
Well, 39 instead of 40, I would be fine with. So.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm pondering about that is if a daycare does not end up working in this spot, what goes in instead, and do we need the full 40 spots? I'm not coming up with anything that this facility is probably well suited for.
Well, it could be a medical facility. I mean, to be honest, if you convert it, he didn't work.
Oh, that's true. That's yep.
Yeah, I'd convert that to a medical facility pretty fast. You know, a doctor's offices to be able to come in and out, or I'm just trying to think. I don't know.
Is the council, we could write in a provision that gives them the option of reducing their parking to, say, 39 spaces if they provide a protected direct pedestrian access connecting the parking area, drop-off area to
Now
the
you're saying we're
building.
allowing the developer to have the option. Why are we giving the developer the option if the council wants something?
Well, they're the ones that have to live with it.
Well, I'm
And
saying you could require it.
Okay, I'm a developer. I appreciate the option. I'm going with my plan. I mean, it's just, you know, it's pretty simple. It's a no unless we say do it. You don't understand, why would they really change? If we give them the option, why would they change?
I think it's a convenience for their, to have covered access that's better protected than going through a handicap zone to get into the building, to me, is better customer service. And if I were running a daycare, I would want to offer that to my customers.
So my guess is that what they currently do is what they've decided is the best for their customers, which is why they do it this way. My hesitation is just we have set parking standards and how many stalls we require. And I think if you start making exceptions to that, then it gets really difficult because there's lots of reasons to make exceptions.
Staff, I did want to touch on two other items before we go to the public hearing, if the mayor's amenable. We did commit to beige in the last meeting, and then I got my hand slapped by the architects, and they said almond is the color, and so I believe they're quite similar, but just wanted to clear that up. And then what was
You're
the
talking
third?
the fencing. You're asking
The
about
fencing,
the fencing.
that's right. And what was that? Can you go back a couple slides? What was the third motion by the
The
planning?
shakes.
Oh, yeah, the shakes. That's right. Yeah. And so, again, the Planning Commission had a slightly different vision. They wanted it on just a few of the eaves, and the architect, again, said, we think it looks a lot better if you put on all the eaves. And so just a slight departure maybe from what Planning Commission was thinking, but this represents what the tenant wanted to prefer. So happy to answer any other questions or wait till after public hearing or whatever you'd like. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any other things before we have the public hearing? Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, we'll open this up for a public hearing. Anyone would like to come up and address the council on this item? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council on things that way. I think we have Brittany bring up a good thing. Okay, also we drop down, we only need 38 or 39 parking spaces. You know, someone's going to, hey, you only made them do it, but we also said it was because of safety, the way they're getting inside in the building. You know, I can see that you're doing that. Council, how great of a concern do you have on the drop-off pickup area?
Rob, with coming back to the hypothetical that I mentioned, that turns out a daycare doesn't work here and put in something else, a medical facility or whatever. At that point, first of all, there would be some changes to the internal design probably, and for the use. Would that need to come back as a conditional use?
It would.
Permit?
They'd have to get a conditional use permit, and we'd probably, at that point, require them to take out whatever pedestrian access was installed and make it back to the standard so they actually meet the requirements for their use.
Okay.
the other question was about the almond fence. Is there a concern about the fencing color?
I don't think I wrote beige into the agreement. I just wrote neutral, non-white.
Okay. The next
The
one's
almond.
about the shaked design that the planning commission had recommended, that there's certain proportion and their engineering is coming back, or architect design.
I watched that meeting with the planning commission, and their biggest concern was just to tie it in. So having more, I don't think is a problem at all.
Any other things that stand out, Rob?
Do you want this to come back to planning commission and council for final site plan and architecture approval, or are you fine with us approving it as long as it meets what you've seen today? This building design, that site plan.
I'm fine with you going ahead with it if we approve this. Because I think we're basically in agreement with everything except maybe a protected walkway in. And I kind of lean towards the protected walkway, but at the same time, I understand the argument when you start giving exceptions to reduce parking, so that's always an issue.
Council, is there a motion, a direction here?
I move that the city council accept the findings and approve the development agreement with WDG Highland LLC, including the provision allowing city staff to be the land use authority for site plan and architectural review, and including an option to decrease one parking space if by doing so we get a direct pedestrian access.
Second that. I didn't know that was going to be your motion.
Okay. I have a motion by Doug, second by Ron. There's a further clarification on the motion. Does anyone need more clarification on that motion? Okay. So reducing parking by one, as long as it's for a dedicated.
You said
The option.
right?
Option. Yeah. We're not the ones that have to live with it. And if they can live with it and provide that to their customers, and they feel like it too makes sense, that's the only way I'd want to impose it on them.
Can I just ask one question? Is there a way to kind of jiggle the parking here where you could still maintain 40 and do a protected access? Is there any way possible?
They can look at that with their site plan. I think with their trash enclosure that they're going to have to provide and kind of the spacing, they've already kind of mapped out how much space they have. It's probably going to be tight, but I'm sure they'll look at, because we'll have to get final engineered plans that have it all detailed. So if they can do that, I think they will, but we don't know yet. I don't think there's a lot of room there, though.
Are they at their maximum on landscape requirements?
I haven't seen the exact percentage, but when I did a rough calculation, it looked like it was in line with what we would require, given the
But meaning, do they have-
landscaping and that the playground area is all non-building and kind of nice amenities. It's a good portion of the site is that.
So you're wondering, Mayor, if an additional parking space could be squeezed in on the northeast
Correct.
side there, either the top or the bottom?
Yeah.
Yes.
Potentially, we can look at that.
So that's my question, because I think that would be a good compromise. We'd still keep the 40 parking spots. We'd have a protected access that we're feeling, a lot of us are feeling kind of is important, if that's a possibility. But I think it would get more of a unanimous support. I don't know if that was a possibility.
So how would we do that in a motion? I mean, would you want to have a new motion stating that they need to come back and show us that they cannot do the 40 if they have a dedicated entrance? Does that make sense? That would be the motion. They have to come back and demonstrate that there is not a possibility to actually add one more spot?
It's up to the council. I mean, you could give them the option to reduce it to 39, or if they can reduce landscaping, provide 40 parking spaces, and provide a direct access, then they need to do that.
Is that what you're discussing,
Would you
Scott?
be willing to amend that and say that?
Yeah.
I think that's a compromise, yeah.
It's a challenge, because if we give them the option, we know which option they'll take, so.
I would recommend that you're very specific in which option you want.
Yeah.
If you want them to demonstrate that have them come back and show that there can be a dedicated entrance with still 40 parking spaces, and, they have to demonstrate that they cannot do that, but I think they need to come back to demonstrate that.
Yeah,
I understand the developer would like to have the yes tonight, but we're also talking safety long-term.
We are. That makes more sense. I'm leaning to what you're saying here, Mayor. That if you can't do it with 40 and have an additional area that's protected, then you need to come back, and then we'll look at it then, see what you've got, and make a decision at that point.
But if they can find 40, they could proceed.
Exactly. Then it's move
You
on.
make your motion. If they can
Move
show
on.
40 with a dedicated entrance,
Yeah.
then that's approved.
Is that okay with you?
I'm a little bit confused about what we're talking about. If this isn't in any sense permitted under parliamentary procedure, but maybe it is sort of if we do, but seek unanimous consent to withdraw my motion.
Say that one more time.
I seek unanimous consent to withdraw my motion.
You seek unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent, and then let somebody make.
Okay, so Doug is asking to
Is
withdraw.
there any objection to simply withdrawing that
No.
motion? Okay.
It was well done, but I just
Do you
think
have
maybe we can modify it.
You seconded his motion. Do you have a concern with this withdrawing his motion?
No.
Okay. Okay. The reason why I'm bringing this up is there might be a possibility that in this area they could maybe look at something with parking. They might be able to move this over a little bit. I mean, they might be able to reconfigure to get one more parking space in this.
And they meet the criteria.
And still be able to get the dedicated entrance. And it meets what we're trying to do, but also meets their intent.
It depends on the percentage of landscape that you're
Correct.
talking about.
I
So-
think looking at the landscape, do you know, are you at your peak, or do you have a little flexibility?
We have a lot of, we have much more landscaping than the.
That's what I thought. I thought their
That's
landscaping
good.
was.
So do you feel like?
To be up to Zoom.
Yeah. Guys, I'm a developer worth his salt, okay? If I tell you, I'll go to tell the tenant. I'll tell him, and we'll give it a good college try to get the access in there. I don't know. The access, I don't think, needs to be 9 feet wide for the kids to walk in. Typical sidewalks are 4 to 5. So I suspect if I can stretch that 4 to 5, build the access, I probably can keep my 40 stalls. I just am not an engineer, and boy, do those engineers get mad when developers pretend to be engineers. So, Mayor, you know what it's like to be a developer. Would love a conditional approval tonight. I know parliamentary procedure is exciting, would love to make foray into innovations into parliamentary procedure, but we absolutely will try to do that. The tenant wants more stalls. The tenant values child safety astronomically. The bollards you can see are on the front of all those stalls in front of the entire building. And so I suspect they'll be amenable, but again, I don't want to speak for them. So I hope that answered questions. I just monologued for 30 seconds. I'm going to back out.
I mean, so what they're asking for is if you make the motion, they can demonstrate they have 40 stalls, but I'd also make sure you know what the width of what your entrance is. You know, if you're okay with 3 feet as a dedicated area, or 4, if you want 8. I mean, I think you have to be that specific in that motion if you don't want them to come back and show it to you.
Can I clarify, since I'll have to write this? What do you mean by access? What are you looking? Because there is a sidewalk there on the side of the parking lot. What does the council want them to give you in the site plan?
From the parking lot, what sidewalk are you talking about?
I believe that we're talking about essentially a sidewalk from the opening of the parking spaces adjacent to the building to the sidewalk in front of the.
Let's see where my X is at. Is that what we're
Basically a drop-off zone that's,
We want a safe drop-off zone which is free of cars that they can see when they get out. They are uninhibited.
They drop
They're
off
not
right
walking
there.
between cars.
so they can park around it, but not park in front of the drop-off. Because it looks on this that they can park, I mean, you drop kids off behind cars that are parked there, is what it
Correct.
looks
That's-
like.
That's the safety
So are you
concern.
picturing someone could pull in park parallel to their sidewalk there and drop someone off.
Okay, if I was really, where the red's at here, I would make sure it's dedicated, and I would possibly even put bollards out. You know, they say they're on the front. I'd put bollards on the front, and so they know that that's the safe drop-off area. You're just trying to give the kids a safe area that they get out of their car and can walk in. They're not going between cars.
Right, between parked cars, running in between parked cars.
And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to understand.
To your question, Rob, I think the answer is yes. The intent is that someone could stop parallel to the sidewalk,
Within
right there at
that
the
X.
red. Yeah.
So they park in the X.
No, do not park in the X.
In the.
Okay, so
Okay, perfect. I misunderstood what you were asking. To stop, not park, parallel to the sidewalk, but in the lane of traffic.
Okay. So you're asking essentially for an area where people cannot drive through, where they'll connect from the drive aisle out. So is a 4-foot sidewalk that's raised above the rest of the parking lot sufficient for that?
Do you think 4 feet's correct? How wide are our site?
Or 5 feet would be our standard sidewalk
Yeah,
width.
5
Is
feet.
that enough? Do you feel
think it'd be
safe that
okay.
the kids see a 5-foot sidewalk, that would be a safe entrance? We're just trying to give an area where the kids aren't walking between cars.
And I just want to make sure I understand what you want so I can write it correctly.
So,
Can I ask one clarifying question? So you don't enter the building right there in the center, correct? Like you
It's
enter
wherever
it in
the
that
entrance is at.
corner?
Yeah, it's a little bit more in front of where the handicap stalls are. So
In the
we would
picture,
probably,
it's
if
in
the
this
kids want a straight
corner.
shot to the door, it'd probably be to the east of
Yeah,
this.
it's
I
to
would say
the
you want
side.
this in
It's
front
not.
of the entrance
Yeah,
door.
it's not right in. Yeah, so the entrance is not right in front of those.
Correct. Wherever the entrance is at. I mean, naturally, they're going to want to put it where the entrance is at, where
That's
they have
where
a
we would
direct
do it.
shot in. We're just trying to keep it safe for the kids.
I like kids.
Yeah.
You like kids?
okay.
I like them to be safe.
Well, and I think what we're trying to do is basically have a drop-off area where you don't have cars parked in front of it, where you can drop the kids off and they have direct access to the door. And I mean, in our offices, my medical practices, we actually have a canopy, but you can bring people in right there. People are parked on both sides, but there's a clear way in that you could just drop them out of the car and they can come right in. And I think that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So just kind of where the drop, because right now it looks like the drop-off is behind a bunch of cars.
It is.
And I think we were just trying to prevent that, if there was a way, kind of a secured way to drop them off.
That's what I envision, Rob. So we build a curb out there or some sort of extremely safe bollard protected system, and then the cars pull up, kids can jump out. I think I get it.
The kids jump out and then they go in. There's no cars they have to run in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now we need a motion.
And I think the big question related to this is initially I had described it as an option. Do we want this to be an option or do we want this to be required? To me, if we're talking about moving things around, making sure there are 40 spots still, and there's one of these, we're going to have to make it required.
I think if they want it tonight, it'll have to be that we have 40 stalls with the access being
A protected access.
protected.
Minimum of at least 5 feet or 6 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd have to look at ADA to see what ADA would require for
5
that.
feet, typically. So if we add in a stipulation as one of the design standards that direct protected pedestrian access with a minimum 5-foot width shall be provided from the parking lot drop-off area while maintaining 40 parking spaces.
So moved.
Plus the other things.
Yes.
You need to make, do we need to do the whole motion so you
You
have?
got it, Stephanie, with so moved?
No,
Okay.
we need
Oh,
a
I'm just
motion to
joking.
clear it.
Let me get the motion up, sorry.
I'll make the motion then.
Okay, Scott.
I move that the Highland City Council accept the findings and approve the development agreement with WDG Highland LLC, including the provision allowing the city staff to be the land use authority for the site plan and architectural review with the following stipulation: that we provide a protected entryway to the building as a drop-off site and still find a way to maintain 40 parking spots.
Do you want to specify how long?
At least 5 feet wide, per ADA standards. We'll have to look at that. I don't know
Yeah,
what the ADA
I
standards.
think saying ADA standards.
Yeah, I'd just say ADA standards, not 5 feet.
I don't know if it's 4 or 5 feet off the top of my
Yeah.
head.
I have a motion by Scott. Is that clear, Stephanie, what the motion was?
Clear as mud.
Do you want to repeat it back to make sure we have it?
Not really, but
Tells us we need to.
I'm not sure where you want the ADA. So,
But you'll have the-
including the provision allowing city staff to be the land use authority for site plan and architectural review and provide a protected entryway to the building as a drop-off site. Where do you want that ADA statement put in there?
Meeting ADA requirements.
Drop-off site, meeting
The
ADA
width,
requirements.
meeting ADA
Width.
requirements.
It would be the width.
Yeah, the width, meeting ADA
And if
requirements.
it's raised, it's got to have a ramp no more than a quarter
Right.
per
And
quarter inch per foot,
maintain
et cetera.
40 parking spots.
Okay.
Find some way to do that, yeah.
I second that.
I have a motion by Scott, second by Ron. Any further clarification on that motion? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and go to vote. I guess we should have asked Kim, was that clear to you, Kim? She must not.
She's been dropping off and on. She has poor reception where she's at.
Okay, so we're now, I assume that Councilmember Riddell has not been part of the discussion or hearing that, so she's not voting. That passed 4-0 with Kim Riddell absent. Okay, we now move on to number 3C, which is a county road vet clinic site plan and architectural approval, and that will be Rob Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Unlike the last two items, this is an administrative item. So this is, we have the zoning, now we're seeing if they can build to that zone. This is in, across from Lone Peak, just south of the PL zone site, actually. Part of the Wild Rose development, some of you will recall the Fairfield Cove PD that got amended, became the Wild Rose, and there's a big negotiation over open space. They have a commercial lot that faces North County Boulevard there. And medical uses are allowed in the zone, and now they've come back seeking site plan approval and building architecture approval, as you are the land use authority. Here is their site plan. It's a rather small site. I think they've tried to make it work pretty well. I'll go through the details here in a little bit. So, site plan requirements, the building setbacks, 20 feet front, side 10, rear 10. The building meets that without a problem. There's a question about whether it should apply to non-building. Down here is their trash enclosure. It's about 6-7 feet off of property line. It's not really clear in the PD whether that 10-foot setback should apply to that or not. In a separate section, it talks about utilities and equipment pads should just be outside of the front setback, and this is outside the front setback. So from staff's view, we think it's fine, but I wanted to highlight that. There's an argument that could be made either way. If you do push it up and make it 10 feet, they're going to lose those bottom 2 parking stalls on that site. I don't think that's required by the PD, but we could discuss that if there's any concerns. Fencing, they'll provide fencing. There's already fencing on the east side between the residential district and this site. They'll maintain that fence, and they'll put in a new concrete fence on the south side where there's still homes.
And the concrete fence is 6 foot or 8 foot?
6 foot.
Okay. But it could be 8 foot because it's between a residential and commercial.
We could require I think it's a minimum of 6 feet for screening walls like this.
Right.
The wall on the east side is only 6 feet, as I recall.
So for consistency, you're leaving it at 6.
That's what we've done as staff. We also do anticipate that those homes to the south will probably become commercial in some regard. They face onto North County Boulevard. We've kind of talked about that in our general plan, but ideally it'll all kind of line up with uses with commercial facing North County and then residential behind it. But that's a discussion for another day. Parking requirements. So their proposed building is 8,500 square feet, more or less. They've proposed to build out half of it. The tenant, it's all intended to be used by the same owner, but he's apparently it's expensive to build this. So he's building the entire building as a shell and then finishing half of it. We know what that half is going to be. It's going to be a vet clinic. And so we parked that at 4 per thousand. But the rest of it, theoretically, it could be used for something other than a clinic. So we parked that at a higher standard. But his intention is, once he gets more funds, then to expand the business throughout the rest of the building. They've overparked it anyway. They have 44 spaces, so they have plenty of parking there. You'll notice they designated on their site plan this hammerhead is their fire access turnaround. Our fire marshals reviewed that, is fine with it. And they aren't required to provide a separate loading area per the Wild Rose PD because the site's just too small really to provide it. We did have some stipulations as we reviewed this, but they're relatively minor. One of them was they'll sprinkle the building as it's commercial. We wanted them to install a fire hydrant along that line. They already did a lot of the work, as you know, because they had to cut into North County Boulevard a couple of months ago before UDOT closed off access. The landscaping has xeriscape, but doesn't cover the entire area. The requirement from the PD is that it highlight entrances. We use trees along the parking lot, limit turf to areas where people congregate. Kind of a lot of details looking at, and back when the council approved the Wild Rose PD, you approved this parkway detail design for North County Boulevard. And what they've shown matches that. They're maintaining that red area is the site triangle that we maintain for UDOT standards. And then they have a variety of trees and landscaping everywhere else. The one thing of note, they have to provide a recreation area. So that was a requirement from the Wild Rose PD. That is basically this area over here. They're providing a pavilion with a picnic table, benches, table. It does go into their detention basin. Staff didn't have much of a concern with that. They need to provide a detention basin. And it's meant for vet clinics, so we assume people and animals can walk through a detention basin that's landscaped just as well.
Do you know
as
how
they could
deep the
anywhere
retention
else.
basin is?
How deep?
How deep? I mean, it's not going to be too steep for a dog to go up and down, I guess.
I think they can get through it. That actually is they have to clarify something with theirs. I think it's actually only 6 feet deep in the middle, but it slopes down to the edge. We asked them to remove the trail connection to our property just because we don't want to maintain the private kind of trail on the city property. We assume people will cross, but ideally, we just didn't want a
So let me ask
private
you,
trail.
why are the two parking the handicap, why are they separated? Is that in anticipation they might have a different type of tenant?
Potential, yes. They're planning in case that is a separate use. Now, realistically, it's not going to be, and the ADA spot will only be from the north side because that's the main entrance, but they are anticipating it could be used for a separate business.
Would they need to have both, I mean, can they be separated if it's the same business, same entrance?
They only need to provide one ADA parking space for their business. They're providing two just to make sure they've kind of covered their bases there.
Okay.
You see the green area, that's the recreation area that they've proposed. So that's all on the site plan. Any questions on their site plan layout? With that, we'll go to architecture. 30-foot building height limit. Oh, sorry.
Actually, the trash, the garbage enclosure.
Yes.
I think it is a reasonable interpretation that yes, the utility and equipment pad piece. Could you just explain quickly, and if there isn't a quick explanation, then I can catch up later, but why the reconciliation between the two things is not that it has to have a setback of 10 feet and it cannot be within the front setback?
So I think the simplest answer would be if all of it should apply, why did we say only front setback? Because the front setback applies to the building anyway. We could have said nothing, and then we say, okay, there's setbacks. Or we say specifically, this needs to be outside of the front setback, which is measured as 20 feet, but nothing else after that. We assume, okay, I guess we didn't care about the side or rear
Presumably it can be inside of the other. Yep. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
It also is screened. There's a trash enclosure wall, a CMU wall, I believe, and then there's trees and vegetation around it as well. So it will be a screened trash enclosure. Their building's just under 24 feet tall. It's designed to meet the C1 standards. They didn't use any prohibited materials, earth tones, moderate variation, but nothing too excessive. In the Wild Rose PD, these were examples of what the commercial should look like. And here's what they've provided, which...
I'm sorry, can we go back to the parking layout with the handicap stalls? My concern is it's only there for a left-hand ramp coming out of the vehicles, and there are many handicap vehicles where they're right-hand. And most places will provide two, one on each side of the area where the wheelchair goes. This is only one side, and both of them's on the same side. So if you've got someone, they would I guess they could back in, but that seems a little troubling to me. Do we know that this meets ADA standard?
Yes, we actually have a conflict in our code parking spaces for ADA versus federal ADA regulations. So we followed the federal because that's...
Which is more restrictive?
It's a little bit off. It was more that we required a 13-foot wide parking stall and a 4-foot wide hashed out area.
Yes.
And federal regs are 12 foot and 5. So we went with that because that gives a better loading area for the ramp to hit. But they didn't require more parking spaces or a certain dimension, or direction of it.
I don't know how those laws are written, but most laws, state laws, that conflict with federal, it's the more restrictive applies.
In ours, it's not one's more restrictive, it's just how do you arrange it. It's the same amount of space either way.
Okay.
You're wrong, Brent. One thing is ADA is 5 feet, but if it's van accessible, it's 8 feet in that area.
Yeah.
So, okay.
So the walkway going up to be 5, but that...
Okay.
Oops.
So what you're saying is we're giving up all of our restaurants to... You had some firehouse subs, you had some others, and we're getting a vet clinic.
The Wild Rose PD was written with a lot of allowed uses for the commercial, and restaurants were just one of them.
I'm hungry.
So, can I make a comment?
Yes.
I think this is well done. So, the residents that live just south of this, the Hogards, he's my business partner.
Yeah.
And I sat with him today, and we went over these plans, and they're very happy with it.
Are they, I was wondering about that. How
No,
did
I
he see where
said,
the trash
look,
enclosure was at? How close it
yeah,
was?
he saw all of that, but they were happy with the 6-foot-high fence and the landscaping along there. And I said, "Are you okay with the building being this close to your property line?" And he said, "We don't have any problems."
Okay. I know he's come to a couple of times at our different meetings and.
Yeah, Yeah, he says they were happy with it. They liked the architectural, they liked the situation, and so I thought I was impressed. They didn't like when they cut into the North County because it was in the middle of the night. It was pretty noisy, but other than that, they did okay.
Other things, Rob, I think, do we have the applicant here also?
We do have the applicant, a representative of the applicant. Just kind of a recommendation. There's no public hearing or notice required for this. It's an administrative action. We believe it meets code in the Wild Rose PD. We recommend approval. We had some stipulations in a sheet. These are final cleanup items, but I'll summarize them here. One is to get the final written UDOT approval of the right-of-way adjustments they're making. They've gotten preliminary approval or conditional approval, but they have to actually
I thought they already had that UDOT approval.
They did because they cut the road to put in their utility lines.
Yeah.
But once the site plan's approved by us, they take it from us and give it to UDOT. They've already shown UDOT the plans, and UDOT says that looks fine, but we want to see what the city's actually approved.
Got it.
And then we'll give our final stamps.
Okay.
So we're going to say, we'll approve it. Go talk to UDOT, give us documentation they've approved it. To install a hydrant so that on their fire line so it can always remain operable. Retain the fence on the east side. There's some just notes in the plans that needed to be cleaned up. Remove that private trail connection. There's some sewer details they needed to correct, and we just reminded them they need to work with TSSD to provide whatever grease or hair traps are required for their use. And then we had some comments on their detention basin, either provide a sump so the water can get deep enough to percolate properly, or do some other arrangement that the city engineer approves, and then we recommended some improvements, but this is a private detention basin, so things that we would require for a city detention basin, we're not saying they need to do it, but we would recommend it because it's good
Is that
practice.
term pond the correct term for that?
Yeah.
Pond sounds like water. There will be no water in that.
Well, I mean, there will be.
I mean,
It's supposed to go away.
potentially, in a flood, there is,
I
but
have a couple questions, Rob. Remove a private trail. Where was the private trail at?
It was just the little connection from the pavilion here.
Okay.
You'll notice it continues up onto our property. Josh Castleberry said he didn't like that. It would interfere with some utility lines and sprinkler lines there. So he said, don't build on our property. That's all his.
Oh, so is this trail not going to connect up to our property?
No.
Now, isn't there the trail on the north side?
There is a trail. The trail runs all along.
Along there. And so this
Yeah.
was a private connection to the trail.
That was a private connection to the trail, and Josh Castleberry did not want that.
Interesting.
For maintenance
And he didn't
purposes.
want that. Tell me again the reasons.
As I recall, he was worried about having the private connection, both because they're building on our property and then kind of maintaining ownership or kind of claiming some access through there. And then he was worried it would interfere with the sprinklers and the maintenance that we have going through there.
And then where are they connecting the sewer? Are they connecting out in 4800?
There's a line, if I recall correctly, it's on the north side of the lot. The engineer probably knows that a lot better than I do.
Okay. If you'll state your name and everything.
Yeah, for the record, Jeremy Draper with Reven Associates. The sewer is connected along that pathway, actually on the north side, so we'll have to cut into that pathway to make that sewer connection.
You said you will or will not?
We will, yes.
Okay, so the sewer's underneath our trail.
That's correct.
Okay. Other questions you have for the developer?
yes, back to the beating a dead horse. I apologize.
It's a vet clinic. That's a bad thing.
Yeah.
We walk dead horses.
on
A
the-
small animal vet clinic, yes, if I remember correctly.
On the handicap accessible stall, it is only designed for left-hand ramp coming down into that area. Is that typical when you only have one that because a lot of these new vans have it on the right side?
You're correct, and there's a lot that have it on the right side. We also looked at it from a driver's side point of view. If the driver is the one that needs that accessibility, we want to make sure that it was on the driver's side of the car. With these stalls being greater than 8 foot in width, as required by federal standards, there's actually enough room on the right side to still be within that stall for someone to load from the left or from the right side of their vehicles while being parked inside that stall.
Okay.
So I think and it maybe makes sense. They'll hug over if they're trying to get out on the right. They'll hug probably a little closer to that stall area, to that crosshatch area.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just like the double where it's in the
Yes.
middle and then you've got both.
Yep.
But-
So one little question. So we debated a little bit about the garbage area, and I think it's because of the parking and different things. But there will be a wall around the south part of that, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then you've
So
got
it'll
some
be-
vegetation between that and then the actual 6-foot wall that goes along there.
That's correct.
So it'll be
yes.
camouflaged. Chances are, I guess the only problem you would have with that garbage is smell. And,
Yeah.
Which is typical of any garbage that you do.
right.
Now, let me ask you, when you talk about garbage coming out of a vet clinic, and I'm just trying to be sensitive, but the animals that they have maybe decided they'd had some health things and they dispose of them, they don't go in the garbage, right?
That's correct. There's specific methods that are used for the disposal of animals, and they cannot be just tossed in the garbage.
Okay, because that's also would make a really bad smell.
Yes, but they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And the owner on the south owns horses and animals anyway, so, yeah.
Is the anticipation they are going to finish out the other site here?
It is. This particular tenant does have several other clinics like this throughout the state that they've been opening, and this is their standard model is they'll do the first half, and then as the business does grow, they will expand into that open space.
So how many more, the person that's running this vet clinic, how many more vet clinics they have?
Personally, I'm working on 2. I know they've got a couple more in the state as well. They've been bringing to the area.
I'm a little surprised he chose the south side to build out instead of the north side that would have better parking, and then use the other half later.
Might be signage, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where people know where they're at.
Curious.
Rob, just out of curiosity, sales tax wise, services of a vet, where would we collect sales tax?
Most of the services don't incur sales tax, but some sales of products might incur would incur sales tax.
I mean, here's the thing. We just approved childcare. We're not going to get sales tax on that. We're not getting sales tax here. I was going.
But veterinary places oftentimes sell some supplies and things.
So they'll be
They often
so
sell
there'll be
food
some
and
tax
treats and yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I just think we always hear about sales tax, but I'm going, not every building generates sales tax for us. They keep saying they want this, and that's where we don't have our restaurants. So, any other questions you have for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is not a public hearing, so this is just kind of brought back to the council. A motion for
I'll
the
make
discussion.
a motion.
Okay.
So I move that the Highland City Council accept the findings and approve the County Road Veterinary Clinic site plan and building architecture subject to the one stipulation recommended by the city staff.
Second.
Have a motion by Scott, second by Doug. Let's go ahead and go to vote. Kim, I take it you're not present?
Yeah, she's struggling with Wi-Fi at this point, so.
Okay. Just want to make sure. That passes 4-0. We'll now move on to some expedited items, hopefully to get moved, we can get through. We have number 4A, which is the action item of the sewer slip lining project, change order number 1, which will be Chris Trustee.
We talked at the last city council meeting about some unspent approved funding for the phase 1 of our sewer lining project. We didn't use any of the top hats, and we didn't need to use any of the contingency. So as directed by city council, we went back to add some additional lengths of pipe to be slip lined. We reduced the number of top hats we had for the phase 2 from 16 down to 7, and we reduced the contingency from 10 down to 5%. I think we are really probably not going to use that even because there's always the possibility, contingencies there for unknowns, but on a slip lining projects, there's just very few unknowns. We know the lengths of the pipe before we go in. Even the top hats, we think everything has looked really good. So we reduced some of that. We saved about $77,000 with phase 1, and this additional length adds about $78,000. So we're a little bit more than what we had saved in phase 1, but we still think that $1,000 is worth getting some additional work done at this point, and we think very likely we won't even spend all of that. So we've put together a map. It's probably a lot easier to see on this screen than up there as presented, but everything in red is what's been added to this project, and also at the very north we added that one street that is shown as green. That shows that we've increased the linear footage from 5137 to 8339. We've had some price increases for pumping, additional pumping that's going to be required, and also for traffic control, since one of these manholes is in North County Boulevard. We've reduced, like I said, the top hats and the contingency. It's an increase of $78,418.35 for a total phase 2 cost of $341,316.20. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
If it turns out that our expectations are incorrect and we need far more top hats than we were planning, is that something then that we have another change order that comes back How does that?
We would have to come back if we use
Okay.
anything more than what we've included in this, plus the contingency. If we
I
start
totally
to exceed
agree that it sounds like you've got a good setup with the number. I just wasn't sure what the process was.
Yep.
Perfect.
We would have to come back. Yep.
Okay. If there's no other questions, let's have a motion.
I'll make the motion. I move that the Highland City Council approve the change order for the sewer slip lining project with Insta2 form in the amount of $78,418.35, emphasis on the 35 cents, bringing the total cost for Phase 2 of the projection to $341,316.20.
I'll second it.
Motion by Scott, second by Ron. We'll go ahead and vote on this. We ready to do electronic voting?
There we go.
Is that working?
It is, but I jumped the gun.
What?
Got excited and
It jumped.
I know,
It
so-
jumped forward 2 steps,
Yeah.
so we'll just have to do it.
Okay, we'll start down here with you, Brittany.
so bad at this.
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
And Ron?
Yes.
4-0. Kim is not present. We'll now move on to item number B, which is resolution of the interlocal cooperative agreement with Utah County for the Community Development Block Grant called CDBG program.
Let me ask Mayor and Council, I am happy to do a presentation on this. This was discussed in a previous meeting by some representatives from MAG. Would you like a refresher?
I not only remember what we had, but I also studied this pretty thoroughly because it had HUD in it. I'm trying to figure out why is HUD in there, but I got an answer thanks to Doug and Aaron. So I'm okay with it.
I don't feel a need for a presentation.
Let's have a motion. Oh, you jumped? Okay, go ahead. Man, someone has quick fingers tonight.
I know.
Okay, go ahead. Is there a motion?
I move that the City Council approve the resolution entering into interlocal agreement with Utah County relating to the conduct of the Community Development Block Grant Program.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, have a motion by Ron, second by Doug. Is there comments we need to have before we go to vote? Not, let's vote on it. Do we have to do voice vote? Nope, let's see if we can get in.
There we go. It's here.
And
Do you know I'm going to have to vote
Scott, what would be
verbally?
your vote on this?
I kind of messed this up in the process of doing
So
it.
go ahead and vote, Scott. What would be your vote?
Yes.
So that passes 4-0. Thought I had the other 3 up there. Okay, the next items are only communication items only. We are here. We can move through these. Our first item is our annual survey. We're going to have Jay walk us through the annual survey. We should have had an email that had them in there, and then we'll go through some of those questions there.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. I sent you an email with all of these proposed questions. These are all draft form. We're here tonight to workshop these, talk about them, make them better, make them hopefully elicit responses that will be useful to us. And so would like you to discuss, and I will be taking copious notes.
So the first question dealt with how interested. Now, I don't think this should be our first question on the survey.
Sure. This is all Stephanie's
so
fault.
So if this is the one we want to go with, I'd recommend it's brought in a different, not the first thing we ask about is, okay, how interested are you in the city creating a dedicated space for creams, like our crematorium, cremains at the cemetery? I asked Stephanie a question, because I assume this is questions put on by you, right?
Yes.
So out of 100 individuals that would come with a burial or inquire about the cemetery, how many would be asking if we have a crematorium or anything in that nature?
I would say there's probably about 15, maybe 20 people who come in. They may not all be interested in cremating or in burying their cremains. However, they are interested in, do we offer that service? So maybe for a family member or another person that they know.
So my first comment, my favorite resident in this city, I asked this question of, and they came back and had some.
I don't remember you asking me this.
Okay, I asked my beautiful wife.
Fair.
My favorite person. But she asked, what was this? And she goes, is this people's ashes? I mean, it was just, there was some ambiguity. It wasn't quite sure what we were talking about. So just, we're talking about those who would prefer to be down into an ash form. But is this, how would everyone rate this question?
I don't love it just because when we talked about it at our work session, it's pretty expensive and requires increased funding. So I'm not sure it would be a budget priority anytime soon. So I'm not sure why we would ask about it. Maybe I'm wrong if a lot of people are interested.
Well, I agree. I don't know that we should ever ask a question, and the next question has the same kind of concern to me, that we're not willing to live with the answer and follow the answer.
Correct.
That what we're getting. And if we don't have the money to do it, I don't know why we're asking the question.
So, Stephanie, when you looked at this, what type of cost would it be for us to do a crematorium or a cremabarium or whatever it's things that, I guess we don't do the crematorium, it would be a place for a barium where they could go and put their urns or things of that nature.
So a crematorium would be where they actually cremate the body. We would not get involved in that business at all. But a columbarium would be, there's several different types of them. They could be a wall where you would place cremains kind of in like a little, for lack of a better way to explain it, kind of like a box inside a wall. And then you would have a plaque on the outside, which would be like their headstone. So there would be that option. As far as the cost goes, we would have to do some research on that and see what the cost would be. Depending on what style we chose to do, it's going to vary based on that.
So I think the question came back from council's going, we're asking a question, is this something that, based on the information we receive back, would we be prepared to move forward on? Or is this something, we asked the question, but we're not moving forward on it?
Are crematoriums typically private or public operated?
The crematorium's where you cremate, so they're private. With the mortuary and things would do that.
So
you're thinking the columbarium.
Columbarium.
So that's more the question, is the columbarium.
Columbarium is what we're looking at here, yeah.
So the place where you put your remains.
Right.
And there are more and more
Right.
people doing cremations, and so it might be, but I think the biggest problem with this question is definition. Because I actually had never heard the word columbarium until
First time I've seen it is tonight.
Well, no, and that's why my favorite person, my beautiful wife, said, well, are we talking about people's ashes? And so that was it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Question, Kate, or
We are currently undertaking a cemetery rate study. How far along are we? And is it something that, if this came back with significant support, that we could fold that into the cemetery rates?
We haven't heard back from, we still, there's just last point of data we need to get to Zions Bank before we've finalized the study and go over that information with them. So
I think it's doable. If council is interested, what it basically would mean is it would take longer for the cemetery fund to pay back the general fund, right? Because you would be dumping more money into the cemetery fund for a little while.
My only concern is if we're having 15 or 20%, is this a service? And let's just talk open on this. Traditionally, we were with the heavy religious aspect in our community, had not really looked at this. I'm not sure on if that stance has changed a little bit. And as that stance changes on the religious aspect, we might start seeing more ask about doing a cremation or things in that nature.
Yeah, there are more people doing cremations. Yeah.
When John LaFront was involved with the city, so if you remember, this is kind of his area, his professional area, and he indicated to us that he saw a lot more individuals choosing this, even of the predominant faith, just because it's
and
not
that's what
so
I'm saying.
much of a...
If that's changing, you need to be aware. Yeah. Now, I don't know. I guess the other question is, those who are cremated, how many want to be in a columbarium versus how many are sometimes with a loved one? Does that make sense? Because it's a different aspect, and I mean, there's a lot of questions. The current columbarium, I think, would only be for human remains versus some might look for animal remains. Does that make sense? I know that's a big business. At least it wasn't Shark Tank.
Well, actually, in our cemetery, we only allow human remains. So.
Well, I'm sure you'd have people ask.
Yeah, well, yes, and I'm sure that maybe, yes, I do get people to ask, but the answer is always.
Question or a council decision.
I think there's more and more interest, so I'm kind of stuck right in the middle on this one. I'm not very interested just because of the cost, but but I am interested because I see this more all the time, yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of inclined to ask the question to gauge the interest. If there really is strong interest, then to me that suggests it's really something that we should be looking into. My suspicion is that we're not going to get really strong interest, but there's a reason why we go out and get data rather than just relying on my suspicions.
I just wonder if the wording, the columbarium is what I'm hung up on. And I'm going to ask ChatGPT, is there a better term for columbarium?
Maybe we talk about an area for
cremation, memorial garden.
Memorial for those part of cremation. I don't know. If
Yeah, you could always call it a cremation garden.
Yeah, a memorial garden, cremation, memorial garden,
Yep.
or, yeah, it's just the term columbarium that I don't want.
Now, Brittany, you had some concerns, so maybe share that concern again, what your concern was about this. Asking the question, what was your concern?
My concern was just, is this going to be a priority item that we're going to consider funding? And maybe we are if there are a lot of people who are interested. It seems like when we're talking about lots of other kinds of funding, like lots of other things we need, then I'm not sure this would be a priority for me. But maybe if it comes back and everybody's interested, maybe it would be.
I totally agree with that, but the one caveat to this, it is a fund that would only be coming from the cemetery fund itself, which would pay back slowly. So I'm not sure we're using other city funds that we're competing with. But I'm just wondering about the timing. Are we getting a lot of requests for this? And if we are we responding to that, or are we just kind of speculating that maybe there's more interest? It seems premature to me, but I'm not a final say on that.
It also depends on how much room we have in the survey. If there's room for another question, then I guess it's fine. Unless there's another question that we want to ask more.
And to Aaron's point earlier, if we decide that we want to move forward with a columbarium or something along those lines, then unless we're looking at 10 or 20 years out for doing it, we probably are using general fund monies to do it, and then paying the general fund back from the cemetery fund.
Okay, this is interesting. So ChatGPT, I asked, what percentage of Utahns are getting cremated? 29.7%, the lowest in the nation, but it is almost 30%.
I'm shocked. I would have said 5.
That national average is almost 62%. According to ChatGPT. But
You could have won some money off of me on a bet.
I'm ready to bet you, Ron, that it's above 5%. I lost $10 to Ron at the Highland Fling. I need to get it back.
So I guess the question is, do we want this question on the survey?
Why don't we maybe go through and see if we have room on the survey and maybe.
But we got to define things a little bit better.
To your point though, Mayor, what percentage did you say choose to be cremated?
30%.
30%, and then out of those, 8% choose to have their remains placed in one of these. So just fun fact, but not fun. But I think if we have room.
Okay, let's see that one's the priority in the survey. Sounds like, hey, if we have space, yes, but it's not a high priority. It's probably so between a 6, 5, 4, someone that is okay. The next question is, how closely should the city follow residential watering restrictions for the park? And then I heard you say, Ron, why are we putting a question in that really it's going to be a policy decision more than we're going to say the residents?
And the reason I'm even going there is that I came into our last meeting really saying, hey, we're not going to do anything that beyond what we require the residents to do. And then Scott gave a compelling argument of our responsibility to present our city in the best possible light. And when you put it that way, I'm going, we do have a responsibility to that. So I backed off that. So if we ask the residents this, and they come back and say, no, we want you to do less, are we going to let all of our parks go brown? Are we really ready to do that? I don't want to ask a question that we're not willing to live with the answer.
So I just want to add into that. I agree with what you're saying there, Ron, because it is kind of the face of the city. And yes, and so my feeling is this, is that we ought to plan in the winter months, early spring, make sure everything's ready to go, and keep things as green as we can, as long as we can. But if we have to get into water restrictions, of course we're going to have to conserve. But the thing is let's start out and not have to play catch up like we did this year. So, I talked to Josh at the Highland Fling, and I told him, I said, the Highland Family Park is gorgeous. It's green and lush in that, but that's the same as the Art Dye Park in American Fork and the Burgess Park up in Alpine. So my feeling is as long as we can, unless we get into severe restrictions, we should keep our public spaces green, at least our major parks. And because if they're dead and dry, I mean, people can't do things on them. I think it's bad.
So to me, this is a policy decision for the council to be made.
Yeah.
Because, and I think what we're saying is, hey, we've been watering different than you guys. Are we okay doing that? And I don't think we have to ask. This is where we are held as council. We are elected to be able to look over the public facilities.
Yeah, I wouldn't ask this question.
I would scratch this question. I don't think it's a question that should be asked.
That's right.
It's not a democracy where everybody gets to decide for everybody else. So in that role, as a republic, I think this is a policy decision that we can make. I think we want public input, but to put it in here, we're really putting it out there in a way that is very troubling to me.
The only reason that I generally agree with the comments that have been made, the only reason I can see for potentially putting this in light of those comments is more of an education matter, that explaining why it is that we're using, that we're not following the same restrictions that we're expecting residents to. And I think that we can manage that need through some other mechanism.
Well, I want to make it clear that I agree with Scott in terms of we start off this way, but towards the end of the year, we may have to let our parks go dry in August.
Right.
In Maryland, when I lived there, nobody has hoses in there's no sprinklers in lawns, but everybody's lawn goes dead in August. You just get used to that. If we're in a real drought, I don't want to use up all our water just to keep our parks green, but we can start off the year that way, and we can keep them nice, and then evaluate it as we go, and then pull back as we need to.
And you can water less as you go along if you have to restrict, if you start out good. And a lot of times it's not just the watering, it's the early fertilization. And Brittany just brought up a good idea to me. She says, because a lot of times if you put this out, people will be okay with other people's parks in their other neighborhoods going brown, but they don't want their park to go brown. And so I think it opens up a lot of contention. I wouldn't have this question on the survey.
No, I think, okay, let's go to the next one, is how often do you use the Highland Library, including borrowing ebooks or other electronic resources?
Mayor, for the fitting on the slides, I had to move them out of order, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
The next one is about the dedicated tax.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was just following your...
That totally makes sense to do that. It just, yeah.
Okay, so I think the Highland City Library is funded by a dedicated tax, which funds 98% of the library operations. That tax was implemented in 2007 and has not been increased since. Since 2007, inflation has increased, library participation use has increased, and federal funding grant has been eliminated, which is not a true statement, by the way.
That isn't true.
That is not a true statement. We got to be careful stating something that's not.
Yes, it is. The money that paid for Libby is gone.
No, it's not. There's actually been court actions to stop it, and they have not stopped all funding. I actually pulled that up and studied.
I think it'd be better to say some federal grant funding
Yeah,
has
and
been
so- yeah.
eliminated.
I wasn't aware of those court actions. So
So
the
th-
state
this-
library last they told us is it was gone. So I apologize.
We were told as a library board it was gone.
According to what my research, it just said that there had been some court actions and then they'd pulled back some of. Okay, despite conservative budgeting,
Donna
and
is
some-
out on leave for the birth of her granddaughter. She's not here to keep us up to date on
Yeah.
the play-by-play of funding, what's coming
We
and
just
going.
have to,
so
want the residents will be careful. If you make an absolute statement and then they also debunk it, it throws distrust in the. Anyway,
We did try to write this and all the questions as neutrally as possible without driving an answer. And so we appreciate if you guys do feel that
I
it's been
personally
written
think
in a way
that's
that's not entirely
it's a strong statement that I
accurate, then
that it could be debunked. Okay, despite conservative budgeting, now that's going to be a question. Well, some think we've been conservative. And some fundraising, the library cannot sustain its current level. See, when you use that word conservative, what you're now implying, hey, we've done all the best budgeting. We're very conservative in our budgeting. And will some question if we're conservative? And I'm just being facetious there, but cannot sustain the current level without additional funding. Should it be reduce the level of service, which will cut the hours, supplement the library for the general city fund, raise the library tax enough to fund the current level, or raise the library tax enough to fund the improved book collection? I mean, anyone with this question, what's your input on this question?
If we say $2 a month, and I know where that number comes from, it's probably $1 million home. Do we know what the average home value is in Highland?
we got the $2 and the $4 are derived from the LRB study.
For the average home, then?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we need to
So,
say that.
yeah,
for the
you need to
average home.
delineate and say that
It'll
for
be
the average
considerably more
home.
for a $5 million home.
Yeah, my wife wanted to know if that per household. Is the $4 per month per household, per individual? So that was what her question. She wasn't sure. Are you talking individual per house, or are you
It's
talking
per household,
So we
right?
just clarify $4 per month per household.
An average of, I don't know. Roughly, I guess, I don't know. I just know some are going to be paying
Okay, now I'm
$8 or
gonna tell you
$9.
what's going to be really important, and you're going to really laugh. This question was before the next question, which talked about that if we had excess funds in the city, what do you want us to spend? Because what we're saying in that question, hey, we have excess funds, so where do you want us to spend? And I would have answered this question different if I'd had known the city had excess funds. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If the city has excess funds,
then you do the general fund.
Then you do the general fund.
Right.
But if we're asking this, because my very first thing when I did the surveying on, well, hold it, you just asked, if the city had additional funds, where do you want this to be prioritized? I'm going, well, hold it. I would have now answered that question different than if I had that.
I would actually
that
rephrase
question,
the next one.
Aaron and I had questions about what does excess funds mean? Where are they coming from?
It came from a council member, that question. So we included it for discussion tonight. But
it is a true statement because we have had excess funds. And that is a question the residents should be asking us is going, well, if you have excess funds, why not do it out of the, because they do need to know that, now do we have always, every year have excess funds that we could fund the library?
So let me just add a couple things. I think you have to, where you say the $2 and $4, I think it depends on the value of your property, how much you're going to pay.
It is.
And that's kind of average. So I think somehow you kind of have to describe that a little bit.
Exactly.
But
Yeah,
at the
I've
same
made a note to
time,
add that.
this year, as your property tax came out, the library tax is delineated. And there's a number of people, if we've been campaigning, that didn't know we had a dedicated tax for the library until it was delineated. And some people said, we didn't know you'd just given this tax. I thought it's been there 17 years. But, it's interesting what people understand. So a lot of people, I think it's nice that you've described that, but I think you have to, depending on the value of your property, I mean, there's some houses in Highland that are $5 million. They're going to pay more than $2 a month.
Yeah. This was a difficult question. We knew we needed to ask something about the library,
Right.
but it was difficult to
write it
to try and educate and have the responses fit into categories that.
But this
that
is a
made
okay.
sense.
I'm just going to you're politicizing this. Hey, we've been very conservative in our budget. That would be subject to a person's feeling, are we conservative or are we overspending by doing some of our things? But we are trying to sell them an idea. And I'm just being very straight. How I read this, if I got it, despite conservative budgeting, you're trying to sell the residents that we're conservative and you should now do something versus being neutral. That's not a neutral word.
What if we were to say...
So let me tell you why we said like conservative budget and fundraising is because I know as I read through all of the Facebook comments, right, that have been going on, a lot of it is, well, cut costs and do fundraising kind of a thing. So I wanted them to know that we had tried that. I'm not, and I'm sure there is a better way to phrase this, but I wanted them to know that we have made efforts in that regard. And so because there was a lot of comments, the first thing you're running to is a property tax increase, and that's not the case, right? And so I wanted them to know that. But I mean, as we talked about in our work session, this is a hard question to write, and I'm sure we won't even be able to fit this as it is, right? We're going to have to shrink this on our survey, and so to be able to fit it, right? Really, this question needs a lot of education to get people to answer correctly, but we talked about, or at least last direction we felt we got is educate them enough that we could at least get a baseline, and so that was our attempt.
And the some federal funding is true, has been eliminated, and despite budgeting, the word conservative was trying to sell me an idea.
What if we changed that? Instead of conservative budgeting, we said belt tightening. Belt tightening.
We've been doing belt tightening.
Belt tightening.
I'm just saying, you've got to be careful what you're signaling is a sales job. I mean, belt tightening, conservative is selling. Despite budgeting, why can't we just use despite budgeting? So we all want to add tight belting, conservative. Why? Because you're trying to sell an idea. You're trying to sell me.
I'm just trying to educate you that we have done those things.
But what the mayor is saying is you could eliminate conservative budgeting, just put budgeting. Because obviously in our city, when we budget conservative.
Can we say careful budgeting? Or because what Aaron's trying to point out is that if we just say budgeting, well, everybody budgets. You have budgets that are sky high. Trump Tower has a budget. So I think there's a term we've got to come up with that doesn't...
I like careful.
Careful? Is that a good one?
You think that's too...
Besides careful budgeting?
Biased, Mayor?
I don't know.
Or attentive budgeting, or I don't know.
But you understand my concern.
No, I take your point completely, yes.
We don't want
to put bias
to be neutral enough that they can say, okay, is this an option? Because like you said, now let me ask this question. I'm just going to ask it to the council. Will this question really make a difference how you're going to fund it? Or is the council saying, well, I'm not really going to be in favor of a tax at all, and I really want to do it out of the general fund, or are you really considering raising taxes, and does this question really make any difference?
I absolutely want this. I put this on Facebook, and there's 117 comments. 117. There's an interest. There's a dialogue going. And I want that dialogue to continue, and it's that on Facebook is preface to get people prepared. Make sure you fill out this survey, because we're going to look at this survey, and I hope we do look at this survey, because I don't know the answer to what we do with the library right now. I don't. And it's a council member. I'm not talking about a candidate. I'm talking about a council member.
I'm interested in the question. I would also be interested in knowing, having that reduce its level of service almost be a separate question, because that is something we may be discussing, and I would be interested to know if people then would be more interested in limiting activities, reducing the collection, reducing the hours.
But you're saying not have it part of this question?
I would be interested in having a second question, just because I think that ultimately that's something that we're more likely to need to decide, like this year, than like the cemetery conversation. I don't know. To me, that's just an important conversation. If you want to cut it, what are you okay with?
But would you not want that? Okay, so maybe I understand. You don't want that part of the question as you're asking about
as an option.
Yeah. Why would you? And I'm just trying to understand, why would it not be an option here about reducing services? Because we're going, hey, we can reduce services. We can come out of the general fund.
I think it needs to stay there.
I think it needs to stay there.
I thought you wanted a different question.
No, I think it needs to stay there. I would be curious in a follow-up question that if you are interested in reducing the services, which ones are palatable to you?
I see what you're saying.
So should I add a question like that to the survey?
If you're interested in
But you're now pointing them to the reduced service question.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is troubling.
I'm just saying,
That's
now you're
true.
saying, hey, we're now looking towards the reduced service. Which one do you
We're
favor?
assuming your answer is yes, so let's get more specific. I don't like that.
Well, I mean, you're also assuming, I don't know, if you're putting a number on there, you're also assuming that answer is yes. I don't know.
I mean, other than some of the body, I'm not against the four reduce the services. I do think it was $2 per month per household. I think average, okay, roughly.
Yeah, well,
$2
we missed
average.
that.
roughly.
We'll put the home value associated
I don't
with
think
that.
we need to have, but average $2 a month, whatever it's going to
Okay.
average the house. I think that's fine. It covers
People
you.
know if their home's above average or in Highland. You know if you have a $5 million home, it's not average. If you know you have a $500,000 home, it's not average.
So let me just make a couple comments. I'm sorry I missed the meeting last week when we were discussing this, and I've been a big supporter of the library over the years. I think it provides a lot of good service. It's kind of the community heart in some ways. I think where people are apprehensive right now is we don't know what's going to happen with the school district split.
That's right.
And so I think people are a little apprehensive. And I've had people, as I've talked to them during the campaign, I'll say, well, you know, Highland, we haven't really raised our property tax for 17, 18 years, but our property tax goes up every year. And I said, well, that's coming from the county and the school board and different things, but they think we're raising their property tax. So there's a lot of kind of perceptions out there, and I just think we need to approach this carefully, because I support the library 100%, and at some point, the library is going to have more funding. The question is how to do it if we don't reduce levels of service. So I think it's just the apprehension right now is we don't know what's going on with the school board and district.
Well, so like on this one where it says the Highland City Library is funded by a dedicated property tax. I'd like to see, because that point
tax.
exactly what tax we're
Right.
talking about.
It is
'Cause
dedicated.
You
then
want
that-
property in there.
Then that will answer the average down here, like you said, Ron.
Yeah.
I do believe, okay, do I have an average home in Highland? I think most people have a good sense.
Yeah.
Am I a
I'm
little above?
above, I'm below.
Yeah, and if it's an average, so I know that that I'm going to be paying a little more because it's based off the property tax. I'm just saying, I think we told the library board we would ask a question.
Is there somebody who would like to volunteer to rewrite this question in a way that
I'll do
the
it
council might be more comfortable with?
with that.
What word did you guys, there were different words instead of conservative. There was careful.
Careful.
Doug, you
Careful.
said a different one.
Some federal budgeting
Adequate?
and a
Belt
property
Tightening
tax.
was what I came up with.
There was a different one, and I forgot to, I was in the midst of the conversation and didn't read.
Scott, you came up with it. It's careful.
Careful
belt
budgeting,
tightening.
I think, was.
I think careful budgeting, I mean, they're always careful. What do you think, Mayor? You
Yeah,
opposed to that
I'm
part?
okay. I just.
And
wanna
I
make
think
sure-
you need to make sure it's a property dedicated tax so
Yeah.
people understand, because until the tax just came out, a lot of people didn't know we were paying 15% of our city property tax to the library. It's interesting. I don't know if you've had that experience when you've been
Is it
campaigning.
15%?
It's about
Of
15%.
our taxes,
Of our property
Highland
tax
City
in town.
tax,
It's
about
15%.
15% of it goes
Goes
to
to the
the
library.
library.
That .000104
It's
is
about
15% of
15%,
our
yeah,
total.
yeah, the total.
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
the library is 15% of our tax we collect
I
as a
did not
city.
know that.
Yeah.
That is good to know.
And we're about 13% of your tax bill.
No, we're down to about 11%.
Oh, we
if you
11.6.
calculate. Yeah, 11.6, it's
I'm
down
sorry.
to 11%.
So of the whole property tax bill, we're 11.6.
Okay.
Of that 11.6 that we get, 15% of that goes to the library.
Yeah.
Now, is that going to be true, David? Is that true for the car tax and all that too? Because we have, I guess it's just all property tax? Okay. Anyway, we're going through this. We knew it's.
I think that
Mr. Mayor?
is all inclusive.
I move to adjourn,
Second.
it being 9 o'clock.
So you don't want to go through anything else?
Our set policy
I have
is
a
that our
motion,
meeting
actually.
ends at 9 o'clock unless we
I have a
approve
motion,
to
and
continue.
I actually had a second. I have a motion by Doug, and I have a second by Brittany to adjourn.
We do have a closed session that would be great to get to if we could.
Can't adjourn.
Can I ask one question? When is the survey going to be published? Do we have
We
another?
plan on sending it out with this month's newsletter in August. We felt like September last year was a little too late
Sorry, no, you mean September. We're already in August.
September. Yeah, sorry,
October's too late.
we sent it in October last year. We want to be able to get ahead of it and
So-
send it out with the next one, which is
If you guys
September
want to do a
5th.
motion to adjourn, we need a motion to go into closed session.
This is making Stephanie panic.
All right, you need to go into a closed session, correct?
Put the wording up for that.
So we would need to move, instead of adjourning the meeting, we need
Correct,
to
we have
move
to
to go
move
into
it
closed session.
To go to a
Okay.
closed session.
Could you put,
And just recognize we have to move forward on things. And so we are going to move forward despite council conversation at this point.
The council appears that they want to end the meeting, and so
And
that's
that's
what-
just fine. I just want to make sure that council understands that staff still has to take actions on
Well,
things.
we haven't had a vote yet.
I'm going to vote no.
Well, let's see what we got. We haven't had the vote. We have to have a motion to go to closed session, and then we have to vote on that.
Well,
we can't, because if we have to go.
You have a motion pending to adjourn the meeting.
That's true.
That's
I do have a
right.
motion to adjourn the meeting. Okay, so I have a motion by Doug
Would
and a
it be
second
a more
by,
appropriate motion to adjourn to closed session?
you'd have to amend the motion.
Correct.
But Doug
or
made a
or
motion
can we
to
do
adjourn.
it like
and-
an
and
extension
Brittany
of
has
15
seconded.
minutes?
We have a motion by Doug to adjourn, and we have a second by Brittany.
Correct.
Yeah.
From what I'm hearing, it may be that our fastest approach at this point is to take a vote on this, which it sounds like it will fail, and then move forward.
Okay, so with that, because we won't have a slide here, we'll start down here with Brittany. There's a motion to adjourn. That's
Yes.
Scott.
I would like to adjourn, but I'm going to say no, because I think we just need to extend the meeting a little bit more and
Okay,
address
Doug?
this.
No.
Okay, and Ron.
No.
Okay, that motion fails, 3-1. Okay, now with that, we still have a meeting going on. Are we okay to keep going through the items here, or do you want to do a motion to adjourn to closed session? Understanding that staff's still looking for direction on these questions.
Mr. Mayor, I move to extend the meeting until 9:30.
There's a motion to extend the meeting to 9:30.
But now, just for clarity, and this is where we need your help, Stephanie. If we say we adjourn at 9:30, we have to adjourn after our closed session. We have to be back here by 9:30 to adjourn by 9:30. Is that right?
That is correct.
So can't we make the motion that we conclude the public portion of the meeting at 9:30 and move to the executive session at that
I
time?
haven't had a second on
There
Doug.
is no second, the motion
Yeah.
fails.
So Doug, or Scott, are you making a motion to adjourn the discussion item? of the-
I just, the motion I'd make is that we, and I'd like to go home like anyone else, but I just move, as a Highland City Council, that we extend the public portion of this meeting until 9:30, and then move into an executive closed session
I have a
to
motion.
talk about property, personnel, or all the other
Limited
things associated.
litigation. We will go through.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Scott, second by Doug. Okay,
One question before we vote. Will that automatically push us into closed session, or will we need to take another vote for it? And if we do not need to take another vote, was that motion sufficient to move into closed session?
I would recommend taking another vote, just in case. I just want to cover us that if we're going to close meeting, that we're
This
doing
should
it.
extend to
But we can do
9:30.
that later. I just
This is extend to
You've
9:30.
given us
The
direction to go
intention's there. Okay.
Yep,
Scott,
you're good.
we're now taking a vote. Scott?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Ron?
Yes.
Brittany?
No.
Okay, that passes 3-1. Okay, we're now back on the item of the survey. Is there other things you want to discuss on the survey? I will handle this question here in front of us.
I believe that if the city has additional funds, which areas should be prioritized? I would prefer simply to ask which areas should be prioritized for funding. Because I believe that
That's
we're
good.
really asking, regardless of whether or not,
Correct.
where should we prioritize things?
That's probably better because it's not saying, hey, because as I read it, we had extra funds, where do you want us to put them, versus which areas would you recommend the city council focus funding on, or place focus on?
So you wouldn't say which areas should be prioritized if we have extra additional funds? I mean, because this all is dependent on if we have additional funds.
Or just where to focus?
Yeah, where to focus.
Right. Potentially, if we don't have additional funds, that
then we're not going to focus on it.
Well, that we end up shorting some of the things that are low priority and moving the money to higher priority items would be how I would read the results of this.
Any input on that? We're going to try to keep each one of these to 3 minutes so we can move forward. Is everyone okay with what Doug's proposing? Instead, if we have additional funds, which areas would you focus if there's additional funds? Or do you want this to be, which areas should we focus on?
I think it was just what areas should be prioritized for funding.
I like that.
Okay.
Without giving a message that may or may not be.
Okay. The next question, actually, we'll just keep going with here. How often do you use the Highland Library, including the browsing ebooks? I think that's a good question, don't you? Any concerns with that question? Okay, if the city, okay, we've already got the additional funds. Go on to the next one. What age group should Highland focus on adding activities or recreational opportunities for? Is this an important question for you? I assume this was probably brought on by a council member. Is this a question you'd like to ask and get the answer back on? Are we planning to do more recreational activities if this answer came back with certain things?
I think this is a difficult question because depending on what stage your family is, if I had a bunch of little kids, I'd say youth. If I was a senior citizen, I'd probably say senior. I'm not sure what this question really tells us.
I agree, Scott.
Is this a question you want to ask?
I probably wouldn't ask this one.
I would be inclined not to ask
Okay,
this
we're moving on. How often do you use the Highland City parks, trails, or open space? Would you like to ask that question? Oh, here. How often do you use, okay.
I put the 2020 version for your reference so you could see what that one looked like, if those were good ones to ask again, or if we want to tweak it or throw it out completely and ask something different. But this is...
That's not a bad
This is
question,
requested
especially since we
again.
had it in 2020.
Yeah.
You're able to measure it against something. you
See if
already
things
wanted.
have changed. I'm not opposed to this.
Okay. Outside of winter and bad weather on average, how often does someone in your household use the trails in Highland and for what purpose? That was in 2020 also?
Yeah.
So is this whole question okay to keep?
This had to do with, kind of Wimbledon and open space sale times and things like that. That's why we asked it.
Okay. I think that seemed okay. Which of the following recreational opportunities would you like to see more of? So my question, when I saw that, I'm going, okay, does this mean that do we have space and do we have ground that we would do something? If this came back that they want more pickleball courts, more playgrounds, more tennis courts or volleyballs, do we have areas in our parks that we'd go at?
This question came from Kim, and her and I talked about this at the Fling. Her thought was, we've got about 150 to 170 per year that we're intending to upgrade playgrounds with. But her question is, as our demographics are shifting, we have less young children and more teenage, older children. Do we really want to upgrade a playground, or does it make more sense to add a pickleball court or a volleyball court or something like that? So it's kind of along that line.
Maybe the question ought to be is, we have a sales tax that we collect about 150,000. Where would you like us to focus the sales tax at? I mean, 'cause is that
It's the sales tax for you're talking about the
parks tax.
parks tax? We have a parks tax that generates, and we could say
Good idea.
this much. Where would you like us? What areas would you like us to focus on?
I like that because this makes it look like, oh my, we've got a lot of extra money in Highland. Let's go do this.
But I think that helps us direct our parks tax.
It does, which I think is ultimately the purpose.
Correct.
Of why we want the answer.
So just one little sidelight. When we designed the Spring Creek Park, we left an area there for pickleball courts
Correct.
if we ever had the funds.
Well, and really, Beacon Hills would be another area. We haven't added a
Sure.
pavilion. We haven't added a pavilion. So that's the question: which recreational? We probably ought to add pavilion on here, possibly. But I do think I would put this question to our parks tax. to understand how they'd like us to use the parks tax money.
Because the people voted for that.
Okay.
That's not a...
Yeah, how would you
know.
like the parks tax used?
It's a great idea.
Now, do we want to put down that we have about 100 and what?
I wouldn't get specific.
Okay.
Because it's going to be, but just say that, in what year, I can't remember what year we passed the parks tax. I think it was 4 years ago.
Was it 2018, 19?
I think it was, no, it was 4 years ago, because I think...
Yeah,
it's-
I was going to bet 2021-ish.
Yeah, about 21, but
you have
just
to
say we
highlight that.
passed a parks tax, where would you like us
Yeah.
to focus with
And
it?
I'd put down passed in 2021. That way they know exactly what we're talking about. It's something we've been collecting, and we want to know where.
And the people passed it.
And we had good support on it.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, what's the next question?
If you want to know what Gaga Ball is, come see me afterward.
Okay, this next one, who put this question on?
We were told to ask some public safety specific questions, so we threw our hand at drafting a handful of them, Mayor.
And I had, my wife says, well, which services? 911, accident, fire? What is it? I mean, this is a lay person asking, okay, Lone Peak Fire has fewer staff. Oh, so you're saying the fire department? Are you talking EMTs? Are you talking, who is it? I was just very interesting that, we talk in so much generality we know. But
Well,
we say,
but I thought we've already approved up to 9.
we
I mean, haven't we already taken care of this? Why do we... Sort of. We're going to indicate that we're
That's the
understaffed
question.
again. I thought we were
Is this a question that we'd like to ask? I was surprised it was on the survey. to
I
be
would.
honest.
Based
I would
on
like
our current
not to.
budget, is this question even accurate?
Right, because we've approved
Because
9.
we've approved it.
Except you haven't because of the interlocal question.
That's still up in the air.
Right.
Boy, I don't like asking it.
I would be inclined not to ask it, and the reason is that even more than with the library, I don't think we can provide the context
Correct.
behind this
Because you're talking
to
about
get
the
a
fact-
meaningful
'cause it
response.
says keep our staff levels low, even though they're below the minimum standards. Because you're already, I call it the sales job. You're already selling, hey, we're below standards. We've raised staffing levels to meet minimum standards. And I think that's the question. And I understand that you can ask different individuals on what that standard should be. Raise staffing levels relative to the fire risk presented by the adjacent wildland. I mean, I think the council said not ask this question. Is that correct?
I'm leaning towards not asking it, because I think this is a question you can ask if the interlocal agreement doesn't work out. But I think we've already approved 9. I mean,
Have based upon the interlocal
Yeah.
agreement being modified.
so don't we meet minimum standards with that? Isn't that kind of...
Would you like to hear from the fire chief?
Well, there's never going to be,
I don't think we're-
enough firemen to suit the fire department.
It sounds like you don't want this question asked.
Yeah.
And so let's just move on to the
On the
next.
next one.
Sorry.
If you had interaction
Two
with the
similar
fire department
questions.
within
One's
last
about
year,
police,
what-
one's fire.
Didn't we ask questions already about fire?
We do ask a question, what is your satisfaction with police and fire? Last year it only had fire. We've made sure to add police as well as an option.
But it's like in that table, respectfully, it's in that table where we talk about a number of different staff. Respectfully, sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, Mayor. You asked me that you wanted some public safety specific questions. So this was our hand at drafting those. So maybe I misunderstood what you asked, but I thought that's what you wanted.
Do we want to, one of the things we're trying to find out is if we have response times or concerns, is this the correct venue to be able to ask that? Or quick.
I think these are good questions.
If you have had interaction with the fire department,
Yeah.
should we put down fire EMS department or fire/EMS with the last year?
Right.
How satisfied with the following? The response time. Now, when you say handling of the situation or issue, is that the correct question that way?
We batted back and forth. How do you ask that, right? Like, how did they do? I don't know.
Yeah. What's the...
I think these are well written, to be honest.
Yeah, I am good with these. I like them. The only thing that I wonder is if there should be I haven't had any interaction.
They can
That's a
mark
good idea.
Thing that they can mark.
Because that would actually give us a better response on.
Then you wouldn't have the if you have had interaction with. You would
You
just
kind of
say,
have to dummy proof these and almost give them 2 outs sometimes. Because
Yeah.
they could
You
also
could
just
leave it
skip
or
this
not.
question.
I like
right?
having
Yeah,
no interaction.
no.
Just so you know that they saw it, they marked it, and they moved on. And that would kind of give us a feel of how many have had, especially if it's like the police or things. And the handling of the situation or issue, we probably ought to ask, because we do need to understand if we have some issues out there that have been percolating.
Yeah, of course.
Because we have had some residents come in with some percolating situations that, that we've had to try to address.
We could say, because we have a free form section at the end, we could say, if you please elaborate at the end of the survey.
They would, I think if you had this and they said handling of the situation, well, how do you do it? Okay, response time, would you want to have, was your situation handled? I don't know if you want to go further. I don't know what to do there. Because you're really asking a question. Handling of your situation, I guess you're asking if they were satisfied. If they're not, you have to say, please put comment at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually going to walk back my suggestion of I haven't had any interaction, because each one of these is a scale as I read it. Is that correct?
That was the intention.
Right. So if you have 2 scale, then there really isn't a place to put.
Oh, I see your point.
Let's go on to our next questions.
Unless the scale is not applicable.
Yeah.
Right. That is it for the questions,
Is that
Mayor.
all of them?
Any other questions?
Anything else that we had? Any other questions you wanted to ask that aren't on here?
Let me just kind of ask a question about surveys. I understand with the survey, we're trying to gather kind of public opinion and different things. And I think that's very helpful. I always have a hard time thinking then I have to make all my decisions on the council based on the survey. Do you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think it's great to gather all the opinions and his information, but I think at the same time it becomes a facet of our discussions. I mean, it doesn't determine, okay, we haven't got enough fire, we're going to hire 10 more. I mean, we've got to figure out how to do that if that's the survey. Do you see what I mean? I just think we need to ask ourselves, what's the purpose of the survey? I think these questions are very good and they're helpful, but are they going to determine what we do? Yeah.
I think that the best we can get out of a survey like this is a broad directionality, because we just can't put enough context in to get something that is super directly actionable out of it.
Okay,
well put.
Here's one, and I'll bring up the alcohol. I guarantee once we get every restaurant in there, if we now would go ask, now do you want alcohol? And they go, well, I didn't get my such and such restaurant. I didn't. It wasn't what I thought. I had envisioned that I had free steaks every Friday night. I'm just saying, it will be an interesting.
It's
what
perception.
you actually, the perception that, and so it's hard when we paint a picture and we always think pretty things. Anyway, okay, I think we're done with the survey. The next question we had.
There's no questions about the fling?
Do we want to ask something about the fling?
I mean, so we have standard questions we ask every year, and so I'm pretty sure there's one on there about fleeing, right? Like your satisfaction. These are the unique
Yes.
that just this year, not
We're
everything
still
else.
keeping the departmental
Okay.
and staff
Yeah, they're gonna ask
evaluation
about selected
questions,
officials.
demographics
Yes.
at the end.
We want. Okay. The next item we have down here is number 5B. We could be fast. Council meeting start times. In May, we started meeting at 6 o'clock. Oh, we have it. And from 7. This is just some data of what's happened with, we are now going 3 hours and 44 minutes versus 3:04. However, we are getting through the agenda traditionally, meaning that if you notice when we got to the 10 o'clock, which we almost did tonight at 9, is we have things that were undone. Does that make sense? And so we have been able to get through, the reason why we're getting through all of our agenda. Do you like that? I just brought that up as a clarification. I think the other thing is it positive getting through the agenda? Is the opportunity to end earlier, which there probably is there negative by starting at 6? Scott, I know you have a job.
So, yeah, let me tell you, I'm happy to come at 6 o'clock. It is, for those of us that are working during the day and the nature of my job, and you can't make all the decisions just based on my opinion. There's 2 things I have problems with at 6 o'clock, is I can't get my work done. And so the following day, it's really a lot more work for me. So I guess I would like it better if we start at 6, if somehow we can get home a little sooner, because we have had a lot of executive sessions, which are very important items, but maybe we need to kind of focus on at least getting out by 11 or something. The other problem is it's peak traffic time. And if there's any sort of snafu with that, it's hard to get here on time. I barely made it tonight, but the traffic
is bumper to bumper. So I don't know if that affects the participation of the public in the meeting or not. I just think I support the 6. I don't want to change it, but I would like to get us home a little sooner. And at the same time, I think we need to kind of ask ourselves, are we inhibiting other people from running for the council because they have these jobs and there's no way they could ever get here at 6 o'clock? Or are we inhibiting public input because it's hard for them to fight all the traffic? Because 6 o'clock's peak traffic time. So I don't know. It's just something to keep in the back of your mind.
I'll tell you, with Tim Ball, when it was on, or even Ed Dennis, at
And
6
Brian
o'clock
Braithwaite.
Yeah, at 6 o'clock start time does not work. I personally don't like it because I have to end my work earlier versus I could work up a little later and wind down. However, I've enjoyed, actually, I know the extra time, I feel like we've got through some agendas.
Oh, yeah,
I think we've
we
been able
have.
to address things a little better. So there's positives and negatives on both.
On the negative on the staff time, how would you rate that? I mean, is it really troubling or just a nuisance?
It's something that we can handle. The being ready to go at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
That's what I mean.
It's a nuisance, but we can deal with
Because
it.
if it goes beyond a nuisance, we want to know that.
So I asked some staff, the problem is they're in the middle of work up until usually 6. You have residents coming in, and they have to change their mind, and sometimes, and they can't get presentations. Some of it, they're having a hard time finishing the presentations to get prepared for 6, because that means that they can't probably start visiting with they have to stop all other stuff at 4 to make sure they're ready by 6, because they also are trying to eat. Does that make sense? They have to also get something in their stomach, and maybe they don't, and so I'm just saying, but council always.
This is my supper. I didn't get to eat.
I just brought it up is that we now look back. We've been doing it for about 90 days. Is it working okay? Any input or anything? I think this is information. We can bring it up another time. Okay. Let's move on to our next item, which is election update. Stephanie, anything we need to be aware of?
I'll just let you be aware that today was the deadline for your first financial disclosure statement, and all of our candidates got their financial disclosure statement in, so we're happy about that. The election will be on Tuesday, and we will have a vote center here from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
And if people are mailing the ballots, putting a physical in saying they need to have it by Friday, I heard, or they can come in the drop-off box here till 8 o'clock on Tuesday, right?
I can't guarantee anything about the United States Postal Service. The safest thing is probably to put it in a ballot drop box or to bring it into the vote center. If they're in line at the ballot drop box by 8 o'clock or in line here at 8 o'clock, they will be counted.
Okay, thank you, Chris. We're moving on. The next one is update on sprinklers and park maintenance.
If the council noticed, but we did get some painting done during the fling. We were out there Thursday late spraying some of the grass. You can kind of see the picture. That first one on the top left is the green to the left, and then what was being painted on the right. A couple of pictures taken more today, so you can kind of see the difference. I think it blends in fairly well. It did look a little bit darker, I think, but I think if you're not really looking at it, I don't think that it's too bad.
The only thing, quite honestly, that was a little embarrassing was when we see paint. You can see it in the middle picture on the left side. Some of that green paint got spilled
on the sidewalk. Yep.
Yeah, on the sidewalks, and that I'm watching residents look down at it, and it's obvious when you see the grass that's been painted.
Yeah.
If you know about it, you know what it is. If you don't, you're kind of wondering, that looks odd, but you don't really know what it is. So I don't mind it. I just hope we're careful in the future to not get it.
We definitely had some equipment problems, especially when we started. Yeah.
Do we feel like some of the dry spots along the highways, because I still notice there's different, like there's just big dry patches. Are we starting to address those better?
We will address those better. We did Highland Family Park, or not, Heritage Park last week. We concentrated on Town Center so far this week. We've ran out of the paint that we've ordered. We've ordered some more, so those will probably be the next spots that we hit.
Any other questions, Jim?
North County Boulevard, by the way, looks
It does
1,000
look
times better.
Yeah, I think everything looks much better, and I appreciate all the effort that's been done. I just think next year we probably should start earlier, and then if we have to dry out here in August. But I will say,
I took my grandson down to introduce him to the Ninja Court during the Highland Fling before he left, which he loved the Ninja Court, by the way. In fact, they wanted to go there again Sunday. But I thought the Highland Family Park, and I think I've said this, looked wonderful. It's green and beautiful, well-kept. I was really impressed.
And the shrubs are all fresh, and I mean, I wish all our parks looked that way, but quite honestly,
Yeah, it
Highland
looked
Family
really
Parks,
good.
somebody's
job.
doing a great job.
Okay, we're now
Thank
moving
you.
on to number E, which is community development update. Anything there we need to be aware of?
No.
Okay, we can have a motion now. to go to-
No, the planning commission, the new date, sorry, for general plan.
Oh, correct, sorry. General plan meeting, because of the election next Tuesday, we're pushing the general plan workshop back a day. So it'll be held next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. If you can't make it, it's understandable. It's also the kind of least important of the workshops. We're going over like the environmental element and another like minor thing. We've already gone over land use and transportation, which are the biggest things. We've handled those. We're just doing the final cleanup things as they're starting
On
to
the
draft the
13th,
plan.
you're saying
On the
August
13th, Wednesday, next week.
So are you saying the environment's not important?
It's very important. It's just, there's little we do in our environmental general plan.
Do we plan to have a call-in set up for that? No is a perfectly acceptable. I will be out of town, so if there is one, I will use it. If not, I'll just watch it.
We've done that in the
We can
in the
try to set it
past.
up with
We can do
advance
that.
notice.
Okay.
Okay, with that, do we have the motion to go to closed
Hold
session?
on one second. One thing came up like 20 minutes before the meeting, really quick. We'll be 1 minute, Chris.
Could you forward, Jay? We just, Hanover Way, we awarded that bid the first part of July. Once we got out there and got opened, you can see that we've got, there's the sewer line right here, and then we've got the large culvert coming down here. Those were what we were going to replace. I've outlined in red. We've noticed that there's been some additional settling that's gone on with a 15-inch storm drain line over there, and then where this circle is at, that catch basin inlet has failed also. Could you forward again? I've got a few pictures in here. You can see the open trench. You can see down here where we've got the storm drain that comes across, and this is the catch basin that we've been having some issues with. And if we could forward it one more time. These are pictures taken inside the storm drain, so it's failed. And maybe one more time, Jay. You can see some cracks, and on the picture there on the left, you can see water just draining out of that box. So we've asked our contractor to give us some additional pricing to correct the storm drain line and the box while we're already there. He'll just be fixing the base of the storm drain box. The risers that are on it, the other sections, will be salvaged and reused. So if you could forward it one more time for me. The total cost he came up with was about $18,000. This project was $93,800, so the 10% contingency was about just under $9,400. So we're doubling what our contingency is. And obviously this is just trying to give some information to the council. We think that it's something that needs to be taken care of, and we should do it while we're there. I wish in hindsight that we had ran a camera down that storm drain line while we were out there, but it seemed so likely that it was really the larger culvert that was causing the drainage issues that we didn't think to until we actually got out there. But we wanted to make the council aware of this, and we'll bring it back as a change order at the next council meeting.
But we're asking for a tentative head nod right now because we're out there right now and can't really wait 2 weeks.
It doesn't make sense to fix a bunch of subsidence because we've got leaking and set ourselves up to have the same problem again in 9 months.
Thank you.
I agree with Doug.
Rest of the council, okay? Okay.
Thank you, council.
Okay, if we can get a motion to go to closed session, please. And I have down as 9:31. Okay.
I move that the Highland City Council recess the regular city council meeting to convene in a closed meeting in the executive conference room to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation and the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property, not fake property, real property as provided by Utah Code annotated 52-4-205.
I'll second.
Motion by Scott, second by Brittany. I guess we got to do a roll call. We'll start over here with you, Ron.
Yes.
Doug.
Yes.
Scott. Brittany?
Yes.
We're now in closed session. If we get in there, we can